520 years ago, the world plunged into chaos. The energy changed, and the scientific and technical world, built on the previous form of energy, collapsed overnight. All sorts of terrifying monsters have brought humanity to the brink of destruction. Fortunately, the energy returned to the world again from the original chi of heaven and earth. Ancient practices and martial arts became humanity's last hope for survival. Starlight Base is the Highland Martial Arts Academy. The beginning of martial arts is building the foundations. Becoming a martial artist is a journey of 1,000 battles and constant improvement. There are an infinite number of forms of tempering to learn. Repeated practice of each is the only path to mastery. Little children don't want to do this at all. Starting from the very basics is very boring for them, and they consider it a waste of time. Their coaches are outraged by this and consider the impatient students a bunch of ignoramuses. Our main character is Feng Yun. He is an orphan. He had no one to teach him martial arts. That is why he became the most diligent of the students. Many of the children thought that he was trying in vain. The coach encouraged the children to take their first-grade entrance exams more seriously. He demanded that those who did not want to train the 18 forms of hardening do push-ups 180 times. And they had to ask the teacher for forgiveness. No matter how hard Feng Yun tried, the coach was always dissatisfied with him and said that he had neither the foundation nor the resources and that he would never become a true martial arts master. When the teacher finished another lesson, he told the students to rest a little. Then they had free training to practice what they had learned in the lesson. Our hero had a hard time keeping up with the teacher. He spoke and showed everything too quickly. The boy was a bit slow and had trouble remembering. Feng Yun was surprised that he had no system after reincarnation. He was what is called a time traveler. He was born on Earth in the 21st century and then reincarnated. From an adult guy, he became a 14-year-old teenager in a parallel world. One day, on the way to work, the pendant on his neck suddenly shone and he was inexplicably reborn. In the previous world, he was also into martial arts, but in this world, without true chi, all practices were useless. It was like a warm-up in the martial arts world. Even though he managed to get into the academy, he had to start his training from the very basics that even children in this world are familiar with. The top student of Highland Academy was named Li Wang. He was a senior in his senior year. A few days ago, he passed the assessment and was accepted into Starlight Academy. Li Wang was the scion of a large family and had cultivated in medicinal baths since childhood, thus building a solid foundation for himself. He was only 19 years old. Feng Yun knew that even at 30 years old, he would not be able to reach such a level and that he would most likely be kicked out of the academy for poor academic performance. But the magic pendant on his neck was always with him. He was informed that his mirror space had been formed and infinite projection had been activated. He wanted to project Li Wang. He had to take some action to catch up with the kids who had been practicing martial arts since they were little, and this was his way, his system. Project and mirror the experience of other masters in order to cultivate oneself. A beautiful female hand suddenly appeared from the mirror he was looking at, and then the beautiful rounded breasts and face. The woman slowly floated out of the mirror, as if emerging from the surface of the water. The stranger ordered not to touch her with dirty hands because these are banal rules of decency. The situation certainly did not look banal and trivial. She greeted our hero in the mirror space. The beautiful goddess herself introduced herself as Mirror. She was the embodiment of the mirror space. Feng Yun said he would call her Jing, and asked her to explain in more detail what was going on. So far, he didn't understand anything at all. Jing explained that this was a space in his mind created by the infinite projection mirror. And with that, she asked him to look into the mirror. There were his current characteristics. Age 14. Almost no talents. And Li Wang's characteristics for comparison. The list of his talents and achievements was very long. Jing said that in the mirror, the drop from it. Feng Yun realized that this was not an ordinary grind. And she urged him to proceed directly to the first battle. Li Wang in battle attire seemed to float out of the mirror. But our hero still didn't understand much, and he decided to ask Jing again. He had two questions for her. The first was that since this space was formed in his consciousness, what was happening to his body right now? She suggested that Feng Yun was currently unconscious and that this was his normal state. And she reassured him that in the future our hero would learn to do several things at once. The second question was the most important for him. The guy was interested in whether he could die in this world during a battle. And he received a negative answer. She reassured him that the battle would feel real, but would only take place in his mind. But the pain of death there would be worse than in real life. In fact, it was even more terrible. But in this mirror world, no one could call him a coward. And according to the rules, you can lower your rank. The emotions from what he heard were all on his face. Feng Yun didn't want to experience death on his own skin at all and asked to lower the difficulty. And then he heard a voice that reproachfully scolded him that things would not go this way. A man with a game joystick in his hands told a boy that a real man does not choose the easy way. The boy replied that the game was too difficult, and he added that if you choose the easy mode, You can miss out on a lot of fun. Our adult hero was of the same opinion. Jing encouraged him to cast aside his fear and take the thorny path, and maybe even sprinkle the earth with his hot blood. The boy in the mirror demanded that she not force the imaginary memories on him, and he also wanted the mirror to lower Feng Yun's status to that of an ordinary person. She promised. Jing warned that Li Wang's drop was stronger than his, even though they were currently training together. She was willing to bet on how many times he would die before the end of the class. He said none. Our hero saw a real slashing sword in his opponent's hands. He had no weapons. Feng Yun flew somewhere. It was very unexpected. Jing laughed her silvery laugh, saying that she forgot to warn him that the location in the mirror space could be changed, and that she herself would sometimes make decisions. Our hero found himself in some kind of forest. Here and there, fiery flashes flew from the opponent's slashing sword. It was very dangerous. Feng Yun decided that this would not work, and that he needed to find a way to attack the enemy. Otherwise, he would sooner or later find him and finish him off. Or eat him alive. But Jing laughed from the side and remarked that it would be better for him to kill him in the looking glass than in the real world. Our hero continued to run, and fatigue was already accumulating in his body and making itself known. Half an hour should have been enough. He saw that the enemy was clad in armor. That meant he should be exhausted even faster. But it was hardly possible to count on that. The opponent could be more resilient than our hero. Therefore, it was necessary to look for a combat strategy in another direction. As he ran, Feng Yun thought that he couldn't penetrate Li Wang's armor. So there was only one thing left to do. We had to find a weak spot in the armor. The opponent caught up and attacked. Feng Yun dodged the blow. He got out of the way of the attack, and the opponent found himself in a disadvantageous position. It would be more correct for him to turn his body in the direction of the attack, and attack either the head or the chest, using the inertia of the sword. This meant that his weak point might be his lack of experience. In his past life, Feng Yun's advantage over such strong guys was his rich experience in real combat. And although the enemy is stronger, our hero has significantly more experience. Feng Yun used a technique to knock Li Wang down on his chest, stepped on his back and raised a large stone over him. Victory was our hero's. Jing praised him, but she said that he ran so fast at the beginning that she thought he was going to die. Feng Yun said that he hoped to get the bonus that had dropped. She assured that the first time you kill each enemy, the probability of getting loot is 100%. Our hero was incredibly happy. Jing smiled slyly and said that his first reward was priceless. Her kiss. He rolled his eyes and threatened to leave a bad review. She snorted that she was joking. Feng Yun successfully completed his first kill and received a reward of the first level technique, tempering of the tortoise and snake. The hero liked the reward. He thought that this technique was better than the 18 forging forms that everyone in the academy practices. You need to say, accept to learn it right away, and Feng Yun accepted this technique. At this moment, his breathing changed without him noticing. The voice seemed ancient, like that of a dozing turtle, or a snake that has been dozing in the depths of the silt for thousands of years. He tried his fist and felt that the strength and blood chi increased, but Mirror said that he was only imagining it. It was impossible to become stronger without ever cultivating the technique. Then she ordered him to relax and defocus. He did so in order to return to the real world, and he fell back into his academy like a ghost. The teacher rather rudely reminded him that it was time to go to lunch. Feng Yun replied that he had been practicing a little. The teacher chuckled and told him to go to lunch, then home. The boy thanked the mentor and cheerfully ran off to have lunch. The teachers had a meeting to decide on the date of the extraordinary exam. Feng Yun decided not to overdo it and save his energy. If our hero fails it, he will be expelled from the academy. He was riding in a crowded vehicle and he felt uneasy about the number of people. Half an hour later, he reached the Rasvet orphanage, which was now his home. He thought that maybe it was not bad when the family was big. He opened the door. A very pretty girl met him at the threshold. His early return surprised her somewhat. She asked if he had done anything wrong. He replied that the teachers at the academy had an unscheduled meeting, so they were released early. Sister Xiaolan herself returned early. Our hero also asked the same question. The sister replied that their class teacher's son had died on the front lines and classes had been canceled. Xiaolan was our hero's secret love. Jing jealously noted that although she was not bad-looking, she was not a match for her in terms of beauty. They walked together to the kitchen. Feng Yun asked the girl for something to eat. He was hungry, since the academy's lunch was meager. Xiaolan prepared a dinner of braised pork and side dishes for him that she had bought especially for this occasion. She wanted to celebrate his first day at the academy. Szechuan-style braised pork was our hero's favorite dish from the previous world. It was quite a luxurious dish for the shelter. He tried it and said that she was a wonderful cook. The girl beamed at his praise. She had learned her lesson and replaced the pepper for the meat with pepper for that very thing. It turned out very well. Xiaolan cooed at Feng Yun and urged him to eat all the pepper if he was a real man. Mirror, who was watching this, was very angry because she was jealous. She really wanted to get out of the mirror into the real world. But, as they say, out of sight, out of mind. Suddenly, our hero found himself in the looking glass again. There he fought another opponent. Jing sarcastically commented that he hadn't eaten enough stewed pork. Our hero was very surprised that she knew everything and was spying on him. No privacy. So, his fight number 25 began. Then fight number 44. Then number 52. In the end, he had 24 victories and 57 deaths. One of the battles was so long that the opponents agreed to a draw. The opponent was an ordinary strongman with a weapon. Jing saw that he was doing well and raised his strength to pre-master of the initial rank. Feng Yun grumbled that without his consent. Dying was painful. Mirror replied that it was for his own benefit, to raise his cultivation. After all, to break through to the next level, he needed to cultivate a lot. Jing had already sent messages to Feng Yun, but he didn't pay attention to them. He received a bottle of first-class blood qi medicine. It contains 10 pills. Very expensive. These pills should be enough for him to break through to the initial rank pre-master level. These pills are made from a mixture of more than a dozen precious medicines. Contains primordial qi, and is the initial and most commonly used pill for cultivation. Jing advised our hero to find a deserted place and accept. After accepting, cultivate the tempering of the tortoise and snake. He also received clothes for 24 victories, but they are still too big for him. Meanwhile, Xiaolan was eavesdropping behind the door. She was very worried about him. She knew that she shouldn't disturb him during cultivation, but she was worried that he hadn't had dinner yesterday or breakfast today. Feng Yun suddenly opened the door and hit the girl with it. Both were very embarrassed. Our hero thought that this would not work, and in the future, he would have to devote time to cultivation every day. The guy understood that he needed to control himself and play no more than 5 battles a day, otherwise he could develop a gambling addiction. He also realized that Mirror could see the real world through his eyes, so he had to close them while taking a bath. Then she wouldn't be able to spy on him. Feng Yun didn't like it at all. He demanded that Mirror give him at least some personal space. She only giggled in response. Xiaolan told the hero that she didn't want to bother him and that she was very worried about him. The girl thought that he was talking to her. But our hero reassured her that he was not talking to her, but to himself. Xiaolang beamed and handed him a container of food so that he could eat at his own convenience. Now, Feng Yun had to go to the academy for classes. Our hero took the food and thought that this girl was probably very friendly with the first owner of his body. He came to an abandoned park in the outer city. From his point of view, it was the perfect place to train. Our hero regretted that he would have to cultivate in the evening because he had classes at the academy in the morning and a long commute. It would be nice to take a vacation for training. Feng Yun must not attract attention. If he was discovered, he would be finished. He took out a bottle of pills. He took one piece. A noticeable transformation began to occur in the body. He began to practice the technique of tempering the turtle and snake, constructing dreams. Like a dozing turtle and like a sleeping snake. There was absorption of qi, tempering of the body. 10 days have passed. Great strength appeared in his body. Our hero was glad that he had taken the first step in cultivation by becoming a pre-master of the initial rank. He only had 1 pill left out of the 10 he originally had. He wanted to go home, have dinner, and fight Li Wang again, so that if he won, he could get something valuable, which would make up for the losses in pills. Mirror planned to raise his opponent's cultivation to the level of a mid-rank pre-master to make his training more difficult. Our hero realized that Jing was again casting spells with the opponent's complexity without consulting him. But he hoped that he could beat him with his current speed and strength. As expected, luck was on his side. Feng Yun received the first-level technique Slashing Sword as a drop. Mirror informed him that it was a rare drop. Feng Yun accepted the drop of the Slashing Sword. To activate it, he needed to concentrate his power on the sword and deliver a furious blow. It's all like a dream. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. This is many years of experience in training the cutting sword. He began practicing the technique on chopsticks. Without a real sword, one could only practice half of its power. But even with that, our hero was stronger than Li Wang. At the time of the projection, he was just beginning to learn. This was the great advantage of projection. In an instant, Feng Yun had gained all of Li Wang's many years of experience and the experience of practicing the slashing sword. Feng Yun remembered that there were real swords in the academy. He hoped to try out the new slashing sword technique tomorrow. The next day, our hero went to the academy. There were swords on the stand, but they were very expensive. An orphan from an orphanage could not afford such a thing. Our hero didn't think it was necessary to spend money on things that could be obtained through grinding, although it wouldn't hurt to earn some money either. Meanwhile, at the Halen Martial Arts Academy, Feng Yun came to the newbie equipment room. He picked up an iron sword. Judging by the state of the weapon, it was clear that it had not been properly looked after and was not in very good condition. The junior students were not given much attention. But this sword should be enough to test the power of the slashing sword technique. During training, the sword broke in his hands. Feng Yun could not understand why this happened. For some reason, the sword broke from the resistance with the training figures. On the table, he saw a note demanding payment for the damaged sword. Ki and blood pill. Such destructive power was only possible if he had reached a level of mastery in the slashing technique. He felt sorry for the chi and blood pill. Feng Yun really wanted to go back and get more, but he couldn't shake things out of Li Wang any further. Because there were limits on the number of things that could fall out from one person, Feng Yun was planning to project all the students later, and then the teachers. He returned to his orphanage. Xiang Lao got a job as a cashier. She wanted to earn money for the orphanage and so that he, Feng Yun, could attend the martial arts academy. Today, her beloved brother came late and she scolded him. He replied that something happened at school. Suddenly, they heard loud screams and saw people running. Glass fragments flew. He managed to use his hand to block one of the large fragments that was flying towards Xiaolang. Feng Yun threw the shard into the trash can. He hugged and comforted his beloved sister. She was surprised that there was no trace left of that weak boy. Now Feng Yun was strong and confident. In the sky, they saw the shadow of a huge eagle. In this new world for him, the theme of monsters was very common. But personally, he saw something like this for the first time. If this huge eagle penetrated the main area, the lives of many people would be at risk. They ran. Suddenly, the eagle fell, struck by a fiery arrow. The eagle fell dead to the ground. Blood was gushing out from his chest. It was a black eagle, a third-rank monster. In this world, a first-rank monster is equivalent to a low-rank martial artist. The third rank is equivalent to a high-ranking martial artist. He is even stronger than a person of the same rank, but was killed by a single arrow. Feng Yun immediately realized that the golden eagle was killed by a high-ranking martial artist. The looking glass suggested our hero to project a black eagle monster. He had never had to fight monsters before, but now he knew that he could project dead monsters. Feng Yun thought about what would happen to him if he defeated the monster. After dinner, our hero sat in his room and meditated. He pumped qi through his body. Feng Yun studied the information about the Black Eagle projection beast. The items he had were much less than expected, but they were all high quality. He summoned Jing and asked her to display the eagle's power at the level of a low-ranking martial artist. And an interesting test began. He and the golden eagle found themselves in the sand dunes of the desert. Feng Yun could model weapons in the mirror space. Our hero chose the sword because he had long wanted to practice with the sword. The battle was very exciting, and he defeated the Black Eagle, since it was his first victory, which guaranteed the first item. Now it was the flesh and blood of a black golden eagle. This was very convenient for our hero. He was worried that after the pills were exhausted, he would not have the resources to continue cultivating. Feng Yun asked Jing to launch another projection. After the fight with the golden eagle, he challenged Li Wang's projection 5 more times, but won nothing more. But now he was armed with the flesh and blood of a black golden eagle. This was a very valuable resource. Next, he set about separating the flesh from the blood. The projection mirror is quite clever, and even provides the necessary tools for the situation. Now, Feng Yun wanted to test the effect of the monster's blood. All the monsters in this world were the result of the surge of the original qi of heaven and earth. Therefore, blood is more valuable than any medicine. He drank blood. It was very painful. It seemed to him that his body was about to explode. He needed to process all this energy as quickly as possible. He used the turtle snake body tempering technique 10 times. The blood of the black golden eagle has proven to be very effective. 1 small drop is equal to about 5 pills of qi and blood. With such a source of resources, Feng Yun could quickly reach the level of a high-ranking reserve martial artist. At least, that was what he hoped for. He thought that even the star of the Li Wan Academy couldn't afford such a luxury as using the flesh and blood of monsters for his practice. Only the elite of great families could enjoy such benefits. Feng Yun went to the forest to practice. He pumped qi through his body tirelessly and was pleased with his progress. He felt that he would soon break through to the level of a mid-rank martial artist. Satisfied with his practice and cultivation, Feng Yun decided to return home. At the threshold of the shelter, he saw his old friend. They greeted each other warmly, and our hero invited his friend to come visit. A friend told me that ever since he joined the Floating Cloud Society, the director thinks he is on the wrong path and constantly makes displeased faces at the sight of him. Feng Yun said that it was because that organization was similar to a bandit organization, and underground. However, the friend came to the shelter for some reason. So he had a goal. He said that he had learned martial arts techniques and even became a junior leader. That's why he now has absolutely no time to look after the shelter. A friend asked our hero if it was true that he had entered the martial arts academy. If so, then once he had mastered the basics, he could teach him some techniques. Feng Yun thought that this guy was still as caring and correct as ever. But at the moment, our hero was much stronger than him. He asked Jing to project this guy, but she said there was no point. So he decided to continue practicing with the Black Eagle and Li Wang. The mirror laughed, saying that they must have already bored him. He decided to practice doing 2 things at once. For example, eating and fighting. At the table in the shelter, everyone noticed that something was wrong with Feng Yun. He became strange. Yang Lao noticed his strange appearance and some uneasiness. Their teacher noticed this too. While eating, he dropped a lot of things on the table. She told him to focus on the food and stop fantasizing. Feng Yun bowed and apologized. Jing reported that he had obtained a low-ranking gold attribute talent and that his opponent had the strongest item. Our hero asked if it was true that a martial artist with an attribute was much stronger than the average martial artist taught at the academy. She confirmed it. Only 1 in 100 martial artists is born with the attribute. But that was not taught at the academy. There are 10 types of attributes in total. Gold, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, thunder, ice, light, and darkness. Each of them gives a person different abilities. Feng Yun asked her to give it to him quickly, and she did. He began to absorb the new energy. Jing asked him if he felt any changes. He replied that he had established an incomprehensible connection with the outside world. It was still very vague and subtle. The energy that came from the circulation of his qi and blood was much more powerful than before. That was all the changes for now. The attributes did not reveal themselves in full right away. To do this, they need to practice a martial art that suits them. The Black Eagle also has a talent for wind. If you master 2 attribute talents at once, you can rise much higher than ordinary martial arts. Therefore, our hero needs to work hard. Feng Yun agreed that he had to try hard since he had such abilities. So our hero became a mid-rank martial artist. This rank gives the opportunity to have a much stronger body. Now, ordinary sharp weapons cannot hurt such a master. Becoming stronger was very pleasant for him. His skin became softer and more pleasant than before. In his past life, Feng Yun envied people who had the opportunity to use expensive skincare products and cosmetic needles. I had to get back to the shelter immediately to avoid getting scolded by the director. On his way to the shelter, he saw a crowd of people running. It was better not to interfere with this. This happened often in their area. Which side is good, if there are any, is known only to God. But Feng Yun suddenly realized that the crowd was chasing his friend from the orphanage. The distance between them was rapidly decreasing and was already less than 10 meters. Our hero rushed to help his friend and entered into battle with armed bandits. But in his current state, he was able to fight them off. Soon, the whole gang was defeated. His friend looked at him from behind and did not recognize him. Feng Yun turned to him. His friend thought he was sleeping. He couldn't believe that his humble friend from the orphanage had fought this brilliant battle alone. He replied that even if it was a dream, the main thing was that he asked not to report what had happened to the shelter, and that he was not interested in the origin of these people and why they were chasing their friend. The friend wanted to know what kind of knife Feng Yun had in his hands and how much it cost. He replied that it was inexpensive. Feng Yun repeated his request once again not to tell anyone about what happened. The next day, near the academy, he saw military vehicles and soldiers. The juniors gathered in the practice hall. They were all talking excitedly, discussing the military vehicles at the entrance. They decided that they were conducting an inspection. Excellent students will be transferred to advanced classes, and those who fail will be expelled. This is what one student from an influential family with a military business said. Everyone was very worried because they understood that they wanted to get rid of some of them due to lack of resources. No one wanted to be expelled. All the students were asked to listen carefully. One of the military experts stood out in particular. Feng Yun and Jing discussed it and came to the conclusion that it was a true soldier of iron and blood. She suggested projecting it for our hero's benefit. He wanted to challenge him right now, and he projected a powerful military expert. A battle began in which the forces were practically equal. Feng Yun thought that Mirror had once again done something with the opponent's strength. The opponent was definitely above a mid-rank martial artist. He activated the second-rank martial art, Fist that breaks the limits. Mirror said that simply lowering his power level cannot make him a cold-blooded fighter who does not lose his composure in any situation. Our hero received a powerful punch to the face and fell to the floor. Jing, who was watching the fight, said that she could bring him down to the level of an ordinary person so that Feng Yun could defeat him. The head examiner told the students that they had specially selected 100 monsters. They would have to defeat one of them alone, or in a team. They will be judged based on their battle results. The top 100 will be promoted to the senior class, and the top 3 places will receive Chi Pill and blood. The students were impressed by these prospects. The examiner looked at the children and noticed Feng Yun in the crowd. He saw that he was trembling and decided that he was very scared after hearing the conditions of the exam. But he was in his own looking glass. Our hero decided that he could definitely handle an ordinary person. And besides, the drop for the first victory was, as always, guaranteed. But he himself is unlikely to be satisfied with such a victory, realizing his potential. The leader of the disciples, Bai, told them that he could take anyone into his team and that the number of places was unlimited. Everyone began to ask to take them along. Seeing Feng Yun trembling, the boys decided that he was so weak that no one wanted to be on the same team with him. They decided to dissuade him from taking the exam altogether. Bai asked if Feng Yun had recovered. They didn't know that at that very moment he was fighting with a powerful military expert, and that's why his body was tense to the point of trembling. Jing informed him that he could extract an item for his first kill, practical combat experience. And he extracted the item. His comrades called him a coward and laughed that he seemed to have fallen into a stupor. Feng Yun's eyes flashed with anger, and he knocked Bai down with one glance. Bai cried out that he was a monster. Meanwhile, the military brought real monsters in vans. Among them was a shadow cat, a first-rank monster. It was very fast but had a weak spot, its neck. Yun had a headache because he hadn't slept all night. But he had gained 10 years of combat experience. But he was so tired that it was scary to look in the mirror. His eyes were like a panda's. They all walked towards the entrance to the arena to fight the monsters. Feng Yun knew that he would have to fight very carefully so as not to stand out. A column of students moved towards the arena where the examination battle would take place. The academy director and chief examiner reminded the students that they could always seek help from the nearest instructor if needed. But as soon as someone asks for help, he will be immediately disqualified. The students grouped together in front of their gates. Feng Yun didn't know that there was such a place under the academy. Our hero's gate was number 24. He opened it and entered the arena. The examiner watching from above was very surprised that Feng Yun would be alone. Our hero said that because he was considered too weak, none of the students wanted him on their team, so he would have to fight alone. The examiner reacted negatively. He thought that he was wasting his time and it would be better to withdraw from the exam immediately. He asked him to quickly choose a weapon and get ready. The pedestal contained various types of weapons and equipment. He chose light armor for the fight. Feng Yun decided to resist for a while and then strike the monster in its weak spot. He didn't want anyone to suspect him of hiding his cultivation level. The examiner from above asked if it was okay to proceed. Feng Yun answered in the affirmative. He often used this type of sword in the training battles in the looking glass. Our hero realized from the roar behind the door that his monster was an iron-haired boar. This is a first-rank monster with high defense and strength. Its weak point is its throat. The examiner from above gloomily informed him that he had been given the strongest of the first-rank monsters and half a step away from the second. And he suggested that it would be better to surrender right away. Feng Yun said that he would ask for help if he could not defeat the monster. A ferocious boar ran into the arena with a wild roar. It wasn't just a boar, it had already mutated into a lizard. Feng Yun told the examiner that it was already a second-rank monster, a snake-tailed, iron-haired boar. The examiner himself became scared and said in a stumbling voice that he should not be afraid and that someone would surely come to his aid. Our hero realized that he himself was afraid. Feng Yun realized that he couldn't hide his strength, and he didn't have time to wait for people to come here to deal with the boar. The grown snakeheads become the boar's weak point. With enough patience, they are even easier to deal with than before the mutation. Feng Yun cut off all the snakeheads from the boar. The examiner was shocked that this weak student defeated such a high-ranking monster. Feng Yun was very pleased with himself. He told the examiner that people are capable of many things when they are pushed into a corner. The examiner was forced to acknowledge this fact. Feng Yun knew that the committee might not believe it either. But he couldn't do anything about it. All he could do was trust fate. The inspector didn't know how to evaluate the fight. The examinee single-handedly defeated a mutated monster of the second rank. And he also noticed that this guy took the issued equipment and weapons with him. When Feng Yun walked out of his classroom with his sword and armor, the student standing there told him that he had forgotten to return everything. Bai thought that the boy had fled without a fight. But, by the way, Bai himself was not very interested in this. His team would soon be coming out and they would definitely cope. Bai believed that the only people who could compete with him were Yang Tian from Group 7 and Mao from Group 3. The three of them could claim first place and no one else. Our hero decided to go to some corner and lie down. He did just that. He lay down on the bench and fell fast asleep. The results would be announced in the afternoon. He still had time to challenge Wang Lin and the Black Eagle several times. Jing felt that Feng Yun had become a bit arrogant after defeating the second-rank mutated monster. The exams were difficult. Many of the students were seriously injured and needed medical attention. Bai informed his comrades that the results had already been posted. Together they approached the stand where the examination reports were hanging. Bai was surprised that in Group 8 the best was an unexpected student who had not previously shown any skill. In the third group, Mao predictably turned out to be the best. In the seventh group is Yang Tian. But Feng Yun defeated a second-rank monster single-handedly and topped the rankings by a wide margin. The military instructor read that he was an orphan with no family, and he thought it would be a good idea to take such a guy into the army. Surely he knows a lot of secrets. But the director of the academy refused the military inspector. He said that Feng Yun was his favorite student. Our hero would be very surprised to hear this because he was considered weak and untalented. Feng Yun had a great day. He projected several battles and won the inch walking technique and the Golden Eagle's black and gold feathers. Now he was running to find out the exam result. In front of the notice board, he saw a large crowd. All the students were making a terribly loud noise and talking to each other. Everyone was discussing our hero. They couldn't believe their eyes that this pathetic loser topped the rating. Bai and Mao, and others too, believed that this was clearly a scam or forgery. The students decided to immediately go to the principal to clarify this situation. Feng Yun walked up to the board and was surprised to find that not only had he passed the exam, but he had also topped the rankings by a wide margin. A delegation of students entered the principal's office asking for an explanation of the exam result. They told the director that they considered the exam results to be rigged and unreliable. And they asked for an explanation. The highest grade for this exam should have been S rank. But on the report card, they saw that Feng Yun had received SSS rank. In the principal's office, the teacher said that they were behaving unreasonably, and that it was not for them to decide what was fair and what was not. But the principal felt that he should show them the recording of the fight. And they saw a recording of Feng Yun's fight with the boar. The students were stunned by what they saw. The monster was clearly not of the first rank. They had never seen anything like it. The principal said it was an iron-haired boar that mutated right before the exam started. And Feng Yun only spent 5 minutes killing it. The students felt ashamed of their intrusion and mistrust. They apologized and walked away. Our hero went to the black market of the outer city. The market was called the Outer Light. Feng Yun sometimes went there to sell his things. He didn't plan on skipping classes, but he needed the money. And also because he was now the object of increased attention at the academy and couldn't keep a low profile like he usually did. He entered one of the shops in the hope that he would not be deceived. There he was met by a very pretty girl. Feng Yun heard that this was one of the largest shops in the market. He told the girl that he wanted to sell some relics he had obtained from fighting monsters. He laid out the feathers of the third-ranked monster on the counter. She offered him 10,000 for one feather. There were 40 of them, and they were in excellent condition. She asked him if 400,000 was enough for everything. Our hero agreed. To formalize the deal, she asked him for his ID. He held out the document. She put the document in the scanner and transferred 400,000 to his account. It was very nice to have money. Never in his life had he had such a sum on his card. He decided to transfer half of the amount anonymously to the shelter's account to make the children's lives happier. The next day, he finally came to the academy. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to explain himself to the director and Sister Xiaolan. His group supervisor put his hand on his shoulder. He was angry that the student had missed class. Feng Yun explained that he was too scared yesterday when the evaluation was announced. He also asked for a half-year leave to improve his health. The curator didn't believe him and dragged him to the director's office. Feng Yun thought that now he would have to escape outside the city to live by hunting monsters. The director asked our hero about his current level. Feng Yun knew that he couldn't hide much from the director's insight. Therefore, he said that he was an ordinary mid-ranking martial artist. The curator had never seen him train so hard to reach such a level. The director calmly said that the academy values every outstanding student, and they have no right to interfere in a student's personal life. He offered to have some tea. Feng Yun was afraid that they wanted to poison him. But the director started talking about how the academy is relatively simple, but society is much more complex. He continued that no matter how big the teacher's wings were, they could not cover the entire outside. Therefore, it was better to remain quiet and unnoticed outside the school walls. With these words, he opened a wooden box on the table. Inside were chi pills, the promised prize for first place in the exam. It gave him a week's leave. A week passed. Feng Yun trained tirelessly. Training became the meaning of his life. He had built up muscles worthy of a top-ranked martial artist. He had spent most of his time in the last 3 months grinding within the system. Eventually, he reached the level of an ordinary high-ranking martial artist. He also practiced the chi of the gold attribute between heaven and earth. This energy greatly strengthened his body, although the attribute's benefits should only manifest after reaching the level of a true martial artist. But from his own experience, Feng Yun realized that they begin to manifest already at the level of an ordinary master of the highest rank. Warriors with attributes autonomously absorb energy. This system of improving one's body works much more effectively than chi and blood pills or monster blood and flesh. The more attributes, the more chi. Feng Yun thought that if he could obtain all 10 attributes, he would become the most brilliant fighter in the world. Over the past 3 months, our hero has acquired the skills of a second-rank master of the palm of inhuman strength and the fist that transcends limits. Also the second-rank tempering martial art golden bell hardness and the first-rank skill sharp golden strike. The rest he learned from the system and achieved perfection. Feng Yun also received an alloy battle sword and battle armor. Now was the time to hunt monsters outside the base. He was also planning to project a more powerful monster. Our hero walked along the city street. People were puzzled by what kind of daredevil would go out into the wasteland alone. They thought he was either ignorant or fearless. And I feel sorry for the man who would have to risk his life to pick up the body of this teenager. Feng Yun walked towards the forest that was outside of the Starlight base. He knew that all kinds of monsters lived there and danger lurked behind every tree. But there were also various resources that attracted attention. That's why the forest is such a popular place for hunters. Most people buy expensive maps before arriving here to understand the distribution of monsters. But our hero didn't need this. He already had the experience of other hunters. First-ranked monster Azure Flower Snake. The power of its poison is so strong that one bite from it can kill any warrior. But it does not contain anything valuable and there is no point in projecting it. Our hero jumped from tree to tree in search of monsters. He felled the rhinoceros and took a piece of its flesh. He needed it as a trophy. Suddenly, a fiery arrow flew past him. Then a few more fire arrows. This attack suggested his next move. It was impossible to dodge the arrows. Feng Yun used the second-rank body tempering technique, and also the technique of the hardness of the golden dome. The one who was chasing him realized that the guy had mastered the dome technique to perfection and was invulnerable to their arrows. Feng Yun engaged in combat with the shooter. The shooter was a hunter who lurked in the shadows and could strike at any moment. For our hero, he was easy prey. After examining the body, he realized that it was a poor scum, because he had nothing but 3 bottles of chi pills and blood. Even his equipment was in tatters. He left the body of the fallen hunter in the clearing and began to watch who would come for him. From the thicket of the forest appeared strong-looking men in masks. They bent over the dead man. They knew the deceased. His rank was at the level of an ordinary high-ranking martial artist, and he was a skilled archer and had killed several hunters before. These two knew that our hero, who was only 14 years old, had mastered the top-ranked martial art sword slash and many other useful skills. They were amazed by the quality of training of such a young man. And they decided to give Feng Yun a wide berth and not provoke him in any way. The base's security cameras saw that the boy returned from the forest alive. He stood in front of the base gates with a huge backpack filled with trophies. Feng Yun went straight to the black market in the outer city. He spent most of the day in the dark forest hunting monsters, but his backpack was too small for all his loot, so he had to take only the most valuable things like flesh and blood. He felt sorry that he had lost a lot because of this. Feng Yun went to the familiar shop. The girl greeted him again happily. For all his loot, he only got 300,000, less than for the feathers. He thought he had gotten too rich. After all, he had earned this entire sum in just half a day. The boy returned home to the orphanage. He was very sorry that he had not managed to encounter the monster that bears the attribute talent. But what his age? Xiaolan ran towards him happily. She had good news for him. She said that someone anonymously donated 200,000 to the shelter, and the director, overjoyed, decided to treat them all to a tasty treat. He looked at the happy children at the table and thought that nowadays, for an ordinary person, a good dinner is already a holiday. He needs to work harder to make sure his children eat well, and eventually buy a house in the center of the inner city for his own orphanage. To do this, they need to become a true martial arts master and successfully pass the exams to enter the Starlight Inner City Academy. And then, he will guarantee their safety. He returned to his academy 2 days later. Now Feng Yun had already been promoted to the senior course and there was no need to hide, but he didn't like publicity either. The trainer stood in front of the students and said that there was only one rule in this place. You can't become a real master before you're 30. Anyone who breaks it can get out. Feng Yun raised his hand and declared that he wanted to take a vacation. His comrades considered this act of his to be arrogant and impolite. Even for such a high-ranking student, the mentor looked at the boy. The director warned him to be more attentive in teaching this boy. But to demand a vacation on the first day of classes, that was too much. He actually wanted to ask for 6 months, but he didn't dare to be so impudent right away on the first day. The mentor's face turned purple with anger, but he held back. He was interested to know what kind of important business this kid had. If he didn't say anything worthwhile, he would get a beating. Feng Yun said that he was embarrassed to give the reason, but the master demanded that he give the reason because 2 months was too long. As a class teacher, he should know, but the guy refused to answer and suggested settling the issue with sparring. If he wins, then the class teacher will have to give him a vacation. The mentor couldn't believe his ears. He was seething with rage and thought that the youth had gone completely nuts and dared not only to make claims but also to challenge them to a fight. Jin commented that Feng Yun was a real rude person. He had deliberately provoked Master because he knew that Master was far inferior to him in practical experience. He mentally asked Mirror for forgiveness. Besides, she already knew that he had nothing left to learn at the academy, so he didn't want to waste his time there. The mentor accepted his challenge. It would be good for the student to beat him up a bit. If his way of thinking is not changed now, he will not be able to grow in the future. The sparring began. Feng Yun used the inch-walking practice, and instead of a sword, he used his fingers. All these activations were visible to the mentor, and he thought that the boy was smart. But he also trained regularly and did not sit around doing nothing as a nanny for the students. Needless to say, the sparring was very technical and spectacular. They used different techniques and skills against each other. The mentor was amazed at how perfectly his protege had mastered and applied the inch-walking practice. It seemed impossible considering Feng Yun's age, but it was no use. The mentor put a lot of force into the blow, but our hero used the dome technique, and his blows not only did not reach the target, but also had a painful recoil. At this point, Feng Yun used the technique of the fist that breaks the limits. The teacher saw that a blow was about to strike. But our guy was not only strong, but also cunning. He claimed that the mentor played along with him and allowed himself to be defeated. The mentor said that he defeated him without any tricks. Feng Yun took this to mean that he could take his leave as agreed upon before the fight. The class leader was amazed by the 15-year-old boy's vision and understanding of combat. He had never seen anything like it in his life. Feng Yun said goodbye and ran away before he could change his mind. His classmates were divided. Some thought he was arrogant. Others thought he was incredibly cool. Feng Yun decided not to return to class to avoid being scolded. The best place for him now is the dark forest. There, he wanted to earn some money by hunting rank 3 monsters that usually wandered around alone. He took the bus to save time. He rode and remembered his battles, especially my first experience with the Golden Eagle. Mirror said that he was very lucky to have obtained a low-rank wind attribute talent. Jing said that green is the natural color of Qi energy with the attribute of wind. With the golden attribute Qi, he could become stronger even without cultivation. It was so cool that he really wanted to get 5 to 6 attribute talents. And then he will become even stronger and will be able to kill the highest-ranking monsters. Mirror decided to remind this idiot who caught the star that monsters with attributes are so strong that he will die before he even gets close to them. Meanwhile, his current mentor went to the director and told him what had happened. He asked what he should do now and whether to give the boy a vacation or not. The director was calm personified. He suggested that the teacher have some tea and not get nervous over trifles. The director said that this was not the first time at the academy that a teacher had been defeated by a student, and he should be happy that it happened to him. The mentor complained that it was very humiliating. The director, as if not hearing his words, thought out loud. He recalled that Feng Yun's skin was soft and golden in color. This was the main sign of a second-tier tempering technique, and not even the initial stage. The mentor replied that they both understood that this was impossible at that age, and that the boy was definitely hiding something and leading them by the nose. The principal thought that having such a genius student in the class was not a punishment, but a blessing. When Feng Yun became famous, the master would become famous too. The mentor retorted that he had never taught the boy anything before. The principal said that if someone found out that Feng Yun was from his class, they would be interested not only in the boy, but also in the master. And then no one will care who taught him before. The mentor got excited and said that he was not a child and understood that this would not change anything. The director of the academy was very wise and did not occupy his position in vain. While calmly sipping tea, he told the mentor that he should be happy that he had such a talented student. And if the teacher can't give him anything, then let him study at home the way he wants. The principal took a small box in his hands and told him to send it to the student's home address. He must not understand that the school will not be able to give him anything worthwhile anymore, and he suggested ending the conversation there. He sent the mentor to carry out the task quickly before the director changed his mind. He promised to carry out the task. He even swore on his life that he would pass it on. And the director thought that 50 years had passed, and he had hope of seeing how the academy educated geniuses. He could die peacefully on this. The principal really wanted Feng Yun to shine in the examination of the 4 schools. He wanted him to wipe the noses of the other 3 old principals of those schools. Meanwhile, our hero went hunting in the dark forest. In the forest, he almost immediately came across the trail of an army of fire ants. These were monsters of the 3rd rank, and Feng Yun thought that today was his lucky day. He thought that these guys were very weak, but their shells and fire poison were very valuable. Selling all this on the black market could make him some good money. Ying warned that there were a lot of them and advised not to attack. Our hero replied that she was worrying in vain and that he would be very careful with the fire poison. But the mirror told him to look around. The ants were huge and crawling from everywhere. There were an incredible number of them. They started to attack Feng Yun. No one warned him that ants can camouflage themselves and change their color. But now there is nothing to be done. He must fight. He couldn't resist such numbers and decided to run away. On the way, he met a monster from the lizard-like order. Our hero said that he would have to hold them off for him, and he hacked the monster to death so that the ants could eat him. He did this all the way. He returned to the shelter and climbed through the window so that no one could see him. Feng Yun was so tired that he barely made it to bed. If it weren't for the monster carcasses that distracted the ant army, he would have definitely died. This time he only managed to earn a measly 20,000. The day was wasted, but his dream of a new home for the shelter required hundreds of millions. And then they burst into his room and started yelling that he was a shameless scoundrel and had clearly done something wrong at the academy. They were the shelter's curators. They were yelling that the school had come for him. But the person who came reassured them that Feng Yun was an excellent student and there were no complaints about him. Feng Yun was surprised to see his mentor. He said that they had discussed the matter with the principal and decided to allow him to study at home for 2 months on his own. He handed the boy a box, saying that the school wanted to give him a gift that would help Feng Yun become even stronger. The box contained 3 golden pills that were worth at least several million. The pills were 3rd rank and could not be bought in the outer city. Those who heard this were amazed at the cost of the gift. The director of the orphanage said that they were very flattered by the care for their pupil, although he was often naughty. The mentor bowed out, saying that it was an honor for him. Feng Yun took the box and went to his room. He thought that he was now indebted to the director. The old man was so generous. But first he had to check if they were genuine. The mirror laughed at his suspicion and confirmed that the pills were real. But she warned him not to swallow the pills right away. He had to prepare first because the amount of energy in them was enormous. He hung a sign on the door asking not to disturb and sat on the bed in the lotus position. Our hero swallowed the first pill. His body was pierced by fire. He was literally torn to pieces by an unprecedented force. It was very painful for him. It seemed to him that the cells inside his body were heating up and that he would soon be fried. Jing was there and told him that he should immediately use the turtle snake technique to absorb the energy. Otherwise, his body might not be able to withstand the overload. He began to practice. He had never heard of such objects that could kill with their power alone. He began to calm down and harmonize the new energy with the snake turtle technique so that it would circulate like a river through his body, and so that the balance would be evened out. He practiced the technique at least 100 times, but he decided that even that would not be enough and increased it to 500 times. His body became as strong as steel. He did not expect such an effect from the pills. Feng Yun knew that many people spend at least 3 years on this. But it is important to think not only about the level of qi in the blood, but also about its quality, or else to obtain many high-ranking treasures. But true martial artists use the energy of heaven and earth to extract pure blood qi. He needed attribute talent no matter what. But then our hero realized that he had forgotten something important. He needed to eat. He began to eat so much food that Xiaolan became worried about his health. At least they now had money for food. Feng Yun went back to the dark forest. He wished his friend goodbye, that he would soon become even stronger and would be able to significantly improve the lives of the children in the orphanage. He wandered through the forest and looked for a monster with an attribute talent. His feet led him to a lake. A sign warned that further on, there was an inner part of the forest where rescuers could not reach. But this also meant that acting without regard for help, at your own risk, increased the chance that good items would drop. He walked up to the lake and threw a stone into it. A huge monster emerged from the depths of the lake. Its size was simply incredible. Feng Yun swung his slashing sword and cut off his head with one blow. Jing said it was a third-rank blue-scaled fish monster. Our hero thought that today he was definitely lucky and that today's dinner would be luxurious. Behind him, Feng Yun heard approaching footsteps. Ying guessed that this was a mid-rank martial artist named Zhang. He had many interesting techniques and skills in his arsenal. He came close to the boy and said that it was not right for the little boy to wander alone in the dark forest and expose himself to danger. But the worst thing was that Zhang simply took his loot from him and ordered him not to follow him. He would not even think of sharing. But Feng Yun was no slouch. He copied all of Zhang's items into the mirror. And Zhang thought he was interested in meat. The mirror showed him that this mid-ranking master had quite a few interesting things. Now he could practice at home for a while and not venture into the forest. Now he'll come home and start knocking everything out. And who cares about the fish? For defeating the fish, Feng Yun received the water attribute talent and the star sword technique. At home, he fought with Zhang in the looking glass many times. The star sword technique was stronger than his sword technique. He attacked Jing for not telling her from the beginning that weapons could be created in the looking glass, and why he had to spend so much money to buy a sword. At home, Feng Yun wanted to try out the effect of the water attribute talent. It was different from the sharpness of gold and the ferocity of the wind. The water key was like a gentle touch that heals wounds. So he didn't have to worry about wounds anymore. Now he had 3 attributes in his arsenal. Even if he did nothing, the 3 types of qi would temper his body, and he would be able to become a martial artist in 3 months. But it was still slow, and he ordered himself to cultivate even more intensively. A crowd of people appeared in front of him. Their leader spoke rudely to Feng Yun. He was offended by the guy's gaze. They didn't know what else to find fault with. Our hero's eyes lit up with an ominous fire. The bandits shuddered. They knew well what the eyes of those who had killed many people looked like. But this look was even more sinister. A real monster was looking at them. The boys were so scared that they fell to the ground and couldn't move. They begged for mercy and insisted that they didn't mean any harm. Feng Yun contemptuously told the leader that if you are a weakling, you can't act like a bandit. He walked right up to the sweating leader and said that he would ask questions and they were obliged to answer. He wanted to know where they came from and why they came to this area. The leader confessed that their gang was called Black Axe, and they came here to find someone. He also apologized for disturbing such an important gentleman. Black Axe destroyed a rival gang, but the leader managed to escape with all the group's money. Now they are looking for him. Feng Yun gave the leader a slap in the face and said that he didn't care about their gangster showdowns. But he forbade them to approach the orphanage and drag the inhabitants into dirty dealings. He put his foot on his opponent's head, but instead of asking for mercy, he demanded that Feng Yun apologize to their boss, or else he would deal with the orphanage residents. Our hero did not expect such impudence and simply knocked out the bandit with a strong kick to the head. His friend from the shelter who had joined this group ran towards him as fast as he could. Feng Yun harshly told him that he had betrayed his orphanage brothers and still had the audacity to return to this place. He replied that he wanted to warn them. He said that Feng Yun had only defeated the sixes, but the gang leader was incredibly strong, and that all the children had to leave. Feng Yun said that he was late and the bandits were already here, and he intercepted the arrow flying towards them. A crowd approached them, led by a strong man who was missing one eye. They laughed and said that they had followed and were following their orphanage friend. The one-eyed man's name was Du Xiao, and he was the right-hand man of the Black Axe leader. It was he and his men who defeated and absorbed the gang of the orphanage tramp. Du Xiao replied to the fool that he and his brothers had followed in his footsteps and that he had led them to the orphanage. Du Xiao said with a sneer that his orphanage would be closed forever today. The orphanage tramp cried out that they dare not touch defenseless children. The director appeared at the gate and ordered her students to stop and go home immediately. Du Xiao gave a mocking grin and ordered everyone to be killed. It was pitiful to look at the orphanage stray. He understood that it was he who had dragged everyone into such a dangerous situation. But suddenly, the unexpected happened. Many of the attackers themselves were struck by arrows right in their vital organs. They were caught by the fire arrows that Feng Yun fired. Du Xiao tried to escape, but a fire arrow also pierced his back. Du Xiao was a mid-ranked pre-master and had mastered many martial techniques, but Feng Yun pierced him like a piece of paper. The orphanage stray knew that he was no longer the Feng Yun he knew from the orphanage, but our hero had no time for explanations. He ordered the tramp to follow him to the lair of the Black Axes. The tramp asked what they would do there. Feng Yun answered succinctly that they would slaughter everyone to hell. The director of the shelter tried to intervene and stop them, but Feng Yun asked her not to stop because this gang was a threat to the orphanage and he had to deal with them. The vagabond warned that there was a high-ranking submaster among them, and Feng Yun himself was only a mid-ranking submaster at most. He said that the information was out of date. The director said that if Feng Yun promises to come back alive, she will not stop him and will report the incident to the police so that he will not have problems later. Xiaolan appeared at the door of the orphanage with a bag of Feng Yun's things. She asked him to be careful and not to overdo it. He promised to do so. The director looked after him and wiped away her tears. She now understood that it was he who regularly donated money to the shelter, and that he had become so grown up and strong. At the same time, in the Black Axe lair, the bandits sat at the table. They expressed hypocritical gratitude to the boss for the fact that under his leadership, they exterminated the rival gangs. They dreamed that soon the treasures of other gangs would pass to them and they would become the richest and most powerful group in the city. And the military would simply freak out at such a scenario. Suddenly, a bag flew onto their generously laid table. Someone said that Du Xiao had arrived. The bag contained Du Xiao's head. So he had indeed arrived. The bandits screamed in horror when they saw the head of the boss's right hand. Everyone turned to look at the door that swung open. There stood a man with a sword. His eyes sparkled with a fiery light, like the devil's. The boss said that the guy was tired of living. His subordinates rushed towards Feng Yun. The orphanage vagabond stood behind him and thought that even if Feng Yun were to break through to the top rank right now, he would not have time to strengthen his cultivation to match the boss's strength. At that moment, the vagabond noticed that a shining golden light had appeared around Feng Yun's figure. He realized that he had activated the perfect golden dome. The boss roared and charged. But Feng Yun said that he had bought all the valuable resources in the outer city from the black market and had a good understanding of what the boss was like. He dealt terrible blows, but they could not damage Feng Yun because of the dome. Our hero himself knocked the boss to the ground with one hand. The bandits were shocked that the alien had defeated the boss himself. The boss hoarsely moaned words of mercy. But Feng Yun was relentless. He knew that people like the boss were incapable of living a peaceful life and would continue to commit evil. He finished off the boss and threw him to the tramp to deal with the rest. He promised to sort it out. The bandits, sensing that their end had come, fell to their knees before Feng Yun. They decided that he was now their new boss. But the guy was no longer interested in being in the Black Axe's lair and he walked away. His pager vibrated. A notification has arrived from the administration of the Martial Arts Academy. They informed him that the 4 academies would be holding a joint exam and asked him to return after the holidays. The purpose of the entrance examination of the 4 academies was to recruit talents from the outer city for the inner city of the Starlight Base. Successful examinations would grant many privileges. It was the fastest way to get the right to live and buy a house in the inner city, and also to become a master of martial arts. Jing was delighted. She had been waiting for this day for a long time. Feng Yun said that the director gave him 3 pills so that he could perform like a black horse in the exam. In recent years, the academy had been in last place, and the old man was very upset. And now it was time to pay him and the school back. The vagabond called out to Feng Yun and asked for permission to take control of the Black Axe gang. He gave his permission and called them to account for all their future actions. The tramp said that today he had seen the light and understood what power meant. After all, Feng Yun had single-handedly dealt with an entire gang, and that if he had wanted, he could have killed them all. Feng Yun ordered the tramp to take care of the remaining gangs and keep order in the area, as well as look after the shelter. The tramp promised to stand up for their common home. Feng Yun had one more thing to do. As long as he was in the inner city, he would not be able to take care of the orphanage. He had to train the vagabond so that he could replace him. They were short on time, so they had to focus on cultivation. He was thinking about the upcoming exam. He needed to prepare because all the participants would be at the rank of the highest-ranking pre-master. To win, he needed to get closer to the power of the masters. He decided to train on Zhang for now, projecting him into the looking glass. He also hoped to get more drops. But the first fight was disappointing. 0 drops. He repeated the fights many times but received nothing for it. Our hero didn't understand what the hell was going on. After all, he always got something for winning. He continued farming Zhang for 2 months, but stayed the same. Jing said that in 2 months one cannot achieve the power of a master, and one must either acquire the skill or practice at a high level. Feng Yun finally managed to knock something out. It was the 3rd level practice of the tyrant cultivation. Jing congratulated him and recommended him to accept it. During the reception, he was so shaken that he almost died. It wasn't the first time he'd felt this way when taking it. But this time it was just too much. The pain penetrated every cell of his body like the bites of 1,000 ants at once. Jing explained that the body was resisting and needed to relax. But now he had instantly achieved perfection in the 3rd level practice. He replied that he would endure it, but he would never faint in front of a girl. And our hero set out to cultivate a new practice. Jing said that he had been cultivating all night, and now his foundation should have stabilized. After he had fully mastered the tyrant practice, he would be able to form a chi shield. He went to check out his new practice with the tramp and his new subordinates. While he was gone, the latter actually reformed the gang into the Dawn Society. He walked and thought that if the director of the orphanage found out about this, she would definitely be furious. The guards at the entrance bowed and greeted Mr. Feng Yun. He ordered their leader to be called. He saw how afraid they were of him. A tramp appeared with a group of people and they greeted each other. Feng Yun said that he needed help practicing his new skills. He wanted to test the tyrant's shield so that he could be calm during battles. Our hero told the tramp to have his charges shoot him with alloy arrows. The tramp considered this idea very risky because it was unknown how it would work. The people started shouting for Boss Yun to spare them. They thought he was looking for an excuse to destroy them all. The tramp warned him to think carefully because the alloy arrows would easily pierce even his golden dome. But he calmed him down and said that he knew what he was getting into. The vagabond raised his hand and ordered his men to get ready and shoot at Feng Yun on command. On command, arrows made of alloy flew at our hero, who stood motionless. He activated the tyrant's shield and the arrows broke off and bounced off it. It looked so impressive that everyone was simply amazed by what they saw. The vagabond realized that Feng Yun had reached an unimaginable stage of cultivation and asked what kind of technique it was. The subordinates were especially impressed by the fact that Boss Yun was only 15 years old. They decided that they were just bugs compared to him. And so the day of the joint exam of the 4 academies came. Feng Yun came to the office of the director of his academy. The director greeted him warmly. The other students participating in the tests had also gathered in the office. They didn't look at him very friendly. They thought he looked arrogant and mentally wanted to settle scores with the guy. Frankly speaking, it was simple human envy of someone more successful. Even Mao wanted to get even with him for the special position he had at school. Jing suggested that all the students gathered in the office were high-ranking pre-masters. She told him not to relax, as the exam was not going to be easy. The director said that everything was in place and it was time to move out. They went to get on the buses. Our hero sat on the bus and remembered that he entered the inner city only 5 months after being reborn in this world. The bus entered the inner city of the Starlight Base. The walls of the inner city were much higher than the outer ones, and the material was different. Everything is made of alloy, and even the buildings can withstand attacks from rank 2 monsters. The outer city was much weaker in defense. Almost all the inhabitants of the inner city are cultivators. It is probably the safest place to live. The bus entered the territory of the Starlight Academy. The director advised the students that it was very difficult to get into this academy, and that only successful passing of the exam gives the opportunity to study here. Buses from other educational institutions also arrived. The participants in the tests gradually filled the square. The competitors made fun of the director of Hylon, whose students arrived first, that their results would not improve. As usual, they would be losers. The director gritted his teeth. It was very unpleasant for him to hear this, and they laughingly told him not to instill false hopes in his charges. Suddenly, Feng Yun saw a monster flying straight towards the academy. It was a griffin, a 3rd-rank monster, and a rider sat on its back. Our hero had heard a lot about the monster riders, but this was the first time he had seen one in person. He thought that it must be at a very high stage of cultivation. The rider lowered the griffin onto the square and dismounted. The rider looked magnificent in his armor. It was Li Feng, a top-ranking master. Everyone greeted Mr. Li. The master was famous for his honesty and impartiality. Therefore, everyone considered him the best examiner. Feng Yun noticed that the director of his academy had not joined the chorus of welcoming voices. He asked if he was going to say something to Mr. Lee as well. The director replied that in an era where the strong were revered, relationships between people should not be built on sycophancy. Feng Yun studied the information about Mr. Li Feng. He asked Jing if she had scanned Mr. Li. She replied that he was a special case and that he would not be able to defeat his copy and get the drop right now. Feng Yun was interested in Li Feng's techniques and attributes, how powerful they were. Jing replied that she would know if she could win. Examiner Li stood in front of the students and said that this year's exam would be different from previous years. There would no longer be a competition between the 4 academies. Even the directors of the academies were perplexed by such news. Li Feng said that this is where the forest ends and Starlight Academy begins. Their task is to pass through this forest. Director Hylan thought that this meant the inside information was true. Mr. Li said that 40 students were already waiting for them in the forest. If they defeated them, they would be able to take their place in the academy, but no one would want to give up their place voluntarily. The students did not expect such a turn of events that their opponents would be current students. There were 3 ways to get into the academy. The first was to become a master before the age of 13. The second was to be born in the inner city, and the third was to pass an exam, like today. In the last 2 cases, master rank can be achieved in 1 year. This meant that the students who would be confronting them were already at the level of entry-level masters. Moreover, this is also a chance for them to maintain their position and curry favor. Feng Yun knew that most of them would not only fail the test, but some might even die. He couldn't allow himself to be surrounded by 2 masters at once. He told Jing that he wanted to fight the copy of Li Feng immediately, but he wanted her to reduce his strength to that of an ordinary person, since the drop from the first victory is always guaranteed. She projected Li Feng. Our hero hoped that he would get something valuable. The first battle began and it was unsuccessful for Feng Yun. He died. He was reborn and couldn't understand what happened and why. Even as a simple man, he was able to use his techniques. Jing replied that there are no ordinary people with high combat skills. They use high-ranking techniques even with the body of ordinary people. Therefore, the chances are slim. She gave some advice, but there was no time. They were asked to go into the forest. Farming and defending at the same time is an incredible risk, but he took a risk. Feng Yun decided to use a trick. It was impossible to defeat the copy of Li Feng, but you can wait until he dies from his own power. Hold out until that moment. But the opponent is so strong that holding out is an incredibly difficult task. He had 24 hours to complete the exam, and he didn't know if he would be able to carry out his plan. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, the students were waiting for the applicants. They believed that the task of knocking them out of the line was clearly beyond the capabilities of the newcomers. Hiding in the bushes, Bai decided that he needed to act quickly so that others wouldn't take the points. While Feng Yun was practicing mirroring Li Feng's projection, one of the students snuck up on him. He decided that he had waited for his prey, his little mouse. But Feng Yun still managed to implement his plan and won against Li Feng's projection. The student had already crept up on him silently with a sword. But Feng Yun was prepared. He repelled the first attack. Looking straight into his opponent's face, he coldly said that since he called himself his enemy, he should not expect any leniency. He even thanked the student for allowing him to practice his new technique on him. The student was amazed. He didn't know that our hero now had mastered the 3rd-level technique Shadow Strike, and that means his entrance exam is starting. At the same time, the director of the Highland Academy indignantly reprimanded the examiners for simply not wanting to accept applicants from the outer city. And so there is no need to put applicants at risk. But they denied the accusations and said that applicants are simply getting weaker and weaker every year, and that all these academies in the outer city are just a waste of resources. Director Hailanya turned away and said that if none of his guys survived, he would leave the base. Meanwhile, things were bad for the Halen boys. Bai was lying on the ground, and the student was demanding that he become bait for the others and call for help. Bai refused. Mao also found herself in a difficult position. The student said that he would then kill him as a warning to others, so that his comrades would be more accommodating. He was driven by bloodlust. Suddenly, he felt someone quickly approaching him, and that it was clearly the 2nd-level technique 7-league step. This meant that one of the applicants was close to the master rank. Our hero reflected that at the moment he had mastered the Tyrant practice and the Shadow Strike and Star Sword techniques to perfection. All of them are mid-ranking masters. Masters of the initial rank under 20 years old can master the 2nd-level techniques perfectly. Now there was only one opponent, which means Feng Yun can win. Jumping sounds were heard from behind. The enemy jumped out at him. He shouted that he also had a 7-league stride, and therefore Feng Yun would not hide from him. The student used the 2nd-level technique, Random Strikes. Our hero responded with the Slashing Strike technique. They met in a duel. The student accused him of being a coward who decided to run away with a giant stride, and did not achieve perfection. He invited a friend to come and beat him up together. The 1st-level technique, Traceless Kick, was used. Feng Yun just chuckled. The opponent thought that he could defeat him with such a noticeable traceless kick. He realized that there was someone nearby. Shadow Strike was best for a surprise attack, and he was one step ahead. His opponent told someone that Feng Yun was like a snake in a frying pan. The two of them decided to wear him down, tire him out, and make him make a mistake. Now Feng Yun also saw the second student who was behind him. Two, of course, was not part of his plans, but he had to get out of it somehow. Sun Shi began to cut down the trees with his fire sword. His partner screamed that he had gone crazy and almost killed both of them. A third figure approached from the forest and said that they were idiots and no different from the applicants. The one who came up to them declared that they were being eliminated from the exam as weaklings. It was Sun Shi, a mid-ranking master. Jing was outraged that these bastards sent a mid-ranked master against applicants who couldn't possibly defeat him. His lightweight technique is much more effective than the 7-league step, so it's impossible to escape from him. But our hero said that since he couldn't escape, he wouldn't do it. The third-level technique Shadow Strike was used. The two students suffered significant damage, and Sun Shi realized that the applicant had been hiding his strength. He told Feng Yun that it was even more interesting this way. He looked at our hero with a grin and said that the test was over for him. He was going to die now. Our hero knew that he couldn't dodge or run away. He took a powerful blow and flew back, hitting a tree. It was very painful. The opponent said that he could see his tyrant practice, but he had not yet reached the level of a master. And he promised that it would be very fun now. Feng Yun knew that if things continued like this, he would be finished. They clashed again. Logs from the chopped trees flew at them. Feng Yun used chaotic strike tactics. The enemy laughed that this was very, very weak, and that the blows are getting weaker. The opponent used the diamond fist technique. He wanted to finish off the applicant with one blow, but Feng Yun gathered all the strength in his hands to block his blow. And that was not all. He developed the Shadow Strike to perfection and could deliver an invisible blow at any moment. And he did. So much so that he killed the enemy with one blow. He was called out by his astonished colleagues from his school, Bai, and others. They couldn't believe that he had defeated a mid-ranking master. Feng Yun replied that there was nothing to be done, it was no longer an exam. It was either one or the other, for survival, and that now anyone who blocked his way would die. At the Starlight Academy they waited, and were surprised that no one had returned from the forest yet. They sent their best students to the forest and thought that everything would end very quickly. And there was Master Xin Li there for insurance. Suddenly they saw a figure running from the forest with a desperate cry for help. They grinned, as if he had had a hard time. The approaching figure screamed at the teachers to save him. They were simply stunned when they recognized the figure as one of the academy students. He was in a terrible state. They began to ask what had happened there and who had beaten him up like that. The teachers assumed that these idiots had allowed themselves to be surrounded, but the student denied it. He said that there was only one person there, and he dealt with all the students. The teachers contacted the principal of Heilin School, asking why the student was breaking the rules and why Li Feng was not monitoring the exam. The survivor screamed that this monster had destroyed everyone. Feng Yun emerged from the forest and announced that the exam was over. He was accused of breaking the rules and killing their student. But our hero objected that the rules did not say that you can't kill, and that they wanted to kill him too. He was told that he would be punished for his words. He replied that he was just saving his life in this game without rules. The teachers of Starlight Academy were indignant. Everything turned out so unexpectedly. Suddenly, Feng Yun became the accused. A huge griffin appeared in the sky. Mr. Li was flying towards them. Li Feng, the chief examiner, shouted for everyone to be quiet. He leaned over the lying student and reached out to his face. He was still breathing. Li Feng ordered the injured man to be taken to the infirmary and said that he would live. The director of the Starlight Academy said that it was just in time because this applicant dared to break the rules and harmed their student. Li Feng looked at Feng Yun and said that judging by the wounds, it was he alone who had beaten 39 Academy students. The director of Heilin Academy turned to Mr. Li and said that he wouldn't punish his student for taking the exam so seriously, would he? He snorted that none of the exams of the 4 academies were without injuries, and the students are not hothouse plants. Everyone knew what they were getting into, and that if they are not ready to find themselves between life and death, they will be defeated sooner or later. Fatso did not like this turn of events. Mr. Li announced that all survivors of the trial would receive treatment. Teachers were forbidden from taking revenge for their students. All students who reached this point were enrolled in the academy. Feng Yun was settling into the academy. It was really cool here, more expensive than the orphanage. Each student had their own house and yard. There were even computers in this world. His room was stylish and modern. The computer worked on formations, so it is better to call it a formator, or an energizer. He began to study the introductory information about the academy. Starlight Academy is different from other traditional schools in that students are not divided into classes. Students choose their own courses and each has its own cost. The higher the rank of technique and hardening, the higher the price. In the academy, this cost is points that students receive by completing tasks, fighting in the arena, breaking records, etc. Feng Yun thought about the feasibility of this for himself. There was a pure energy tower in the academy. It contained an energy accumulation formation that accelerated cultivation many times over. There were 9 levels in the tower. Feng Yun beat 40 students in the exam, earning 400 points. This is enough for only 4 hours of cultivation on the first floor. The second floor is 500 points, the third is 1,000, and the ninth floor requires 30,000. It felt like extortion. Our hero thought that it would be a good idea to build his own energy storage facility. In this world, there were 4 professions: warrior, alchemists with an innate talent for the elements of wood or fire, artifact masters with an innate talent for fire or metal, and the extremely rare formation masters with an innate talent for spirit. But in addition to simply copying the formation master in the academy, our hero still needed to acquire spiritual talent. But at the moment, Feng Yun had more important things to do. During the exam, he noticed that in a protracted battle, he was expending energy uncontrollably. Moreover, now that his attributes could continuously consume energy from the surrounding environment, he needed to reach master rank as soon as possible. The students of the academy were discussing the news that a fierce student from the outer city had appeared at the exam. He had single-handedly dealt with 40 students of the academy. All the new disciples from the outer city are weaklings. Only one of them is truly strong, Feng Yun, who dealt with Sun Li. However, Sun Li is also a scumbag. Regardless, it was unforgivable for the trash from the outer city to defeat 40 academy students. They wanted to teach him a lesson. The students conspired to teach Feng Yun a lesson in good manners. After they taught him a lesson, he would leave the academy himself and all the scum from the outer city would leave with him. But for now, that guy behaved quietly and never left the dorm for half a month. And he just tirelessly cultivated. And he generated such energy that other students noticed it. The students were surprised at what this unprecedented energy was and where it came from. This power could be attributed to a master of the highest rank. Feng Yun practiced tirelessly for half a month and finally broke through to the master level at the age of 15. This was quite good for his age. Feng Yun was now stronger than most of the Starlight Base residents and could deal with most of them. Now he could sense the pulsations of the surrounding energy in the outside world, and could cultivate the steel practice, which had a bonus to attack power. And Feng Yun was eager to walk around the area in search of new targets to scan. Our hero had no doubt that he had the practices and talents with attributes on a platter. All that was left was to knock them out. The next day, he went to the academy. There he learned with indignation that he and the students from the outer city were being contemptuously called pathetic scum. He wandered around all day, but found no one except students with the same attributes as him. Jing told him that the academy was big, and it was not easy to just stumble upon someone suitable. Real talents had to be found in the central area or on assignment. Feng Yun went to the central area of the Starlight Base. The academy's main hall and the Pure Energy Tower were located there. The tower building was impressive in its grandeur. He wondered if he could sneak in there. At the entrance of the building, he saw several students. Among them was Yang Ming, the 7th strongest. From his appearance, it looked like he had just returned from a mission. And rumor has it he's already taken a new one. He was so cool he didn't even need a rest. Feng Yun quickly scanned it. Yang Ming had a 3rd-level metal attribute, and also middle-rank attributes and many interesting techniques. Our hero was simply happy that he had found an object for mirroring and wanted to get down to business immediately. Some students noticed that the newcomer was drooling over Yang Ming, but they did not understand the nature of this interest and decided that the kid was just a pervert. He entered the building with the crowd and decided to focus on finding new talent. And at the same time, he will farm Yang Ming. The building was boring because there was not a single talent. It seemed that everyone had scattered to their tasks, or that the tower was pumping energy. To get there, he had to earn some points. And he started looking for an adventure. He didn't have to look long. He found a mid-ranking master. This time, defeating a master of such a level was easier for Feng Yun than it had been during the exam. He was very pleased with himself because he got a lot of goodies. Jing congratulated our hero on the fact that he knocked out a talent for mid-rank metal on the first try. Now his connection with the metal attribute has become much higher than Yang Ming's. Mirror said he needed practice before going on a mission, but our hero had better plans. He decided to go to the arena. A month passed during which Feng Yun farmed people of interest to him. In particular, he obtained the 3rd-level practice of Metal Shine. The practice of Metal Shine had 3 levels. When mastering all 3, the pure energy of the metal is concentrated in a small luminary, opening access to a huge amount of energy. The practice with the attribute collects the energy scattered all over and purifies it. But Yang Ming developed this practice only to the middle stage. He believed that to reach the top level, he had to continue farming. But Jing refuted this and said that he had to put in his own efforts to achieve perfection. He cultivated diligently in his room for a while, then decided it was time to work his strength in the arena and earn points. To do this, Feng Yun went to the training hall. It was a specially equipped room with exercise machines and other sports equipment. There was an obelisk to determine the strength of the attack. 1 lit stone meant an attack by a master of the initial rank, 2 meant an attack by a master of the middle rank, and so on. In the hall, his name was called. Our hero saw 3 students he didn't know. They mockingly told him that they were looking for him and waiting for him to get out of his month-and-a-half of confinement. They scornfully informed him that he was not worthy of being in the academy, and that the 40 students he had beaten in the exam were nothing but pathetic scum. They suggested that he immediately clear out into the outer city and not insult the academy walls with his presence. And if he was slow, they would help him speed up. Feng Yun calmly ignored this bullying, walked up to the strength determination obelisk and struck. Crystals corresponding to a top-ranked master fell out. The hair on the 3 of them stood on end. Turning to them, Feng Yun calmly asked them to repeat what they had said. They were trembling, unable to utter a word. The impudent fellows started babbling something about the weather being bad, and ice cream appeared in the cafeteria, and one of them broke up with his girlfriend. We almost wet our pants from horror. Feng Yun thought with disdain that these cowards were not willing to stand behind their words. Jing said that since Feng Yun was willing to attack with the strength of high-ranking masters, they would not go out into the arena against him if they had any brains. But he was actually disappointed. Our hero had hoped for a stronger attack and to beat the academy record, so there was no choice and he will have to complete several tasks. Fights with the best help to become stronger. He went back to the administration building to get directions for the mission. He walked up to the board with the tasks. They were divided by difficulty level into white, gray, black, and red ranks. Red was for the highest rank. He decided to start with a gray rank. The other students, looking at him, decided that he was too young to be a mid-ranking master and should not be in the hall with gray tasks. They decided that he just came to gawk. Our hero has chosen the task of assisting law enforcement agencies in capturing members of the Bloodthorn gang. Qualification requirements. Mid-rank master. The students decided that he had gone crazy and needed to be stopped. The Bloodthorn gang was very dangerous. Jing didn't approve of his choice either. She didn't want him to attract public attention in his fight against the gang. Feng Yun said that he needed it because they had something he needed, and that he planned to do it behind the law enforcement officers' backs so that he wouldn't be noticed. Meanwhile, a meeting was taking place at the law enforcement headquarters of the Starlight Base. They discussed how the Bloodthorn gang had gone completely wild. Zhang Tao, the squad leader and a mid-ranking master, asked the assembled group if any of the students had accepted the task of assisting in eliminating the gang. They looked at the screen and saw that the task had been taken by a certain Feng Yun, a master of the initial rank. They were surprised that this guy took on a task that was not his rank and would only get in the way of the task. The girl with pink hair sitting at the table said that the guy must be very talented if he is already a master at 15 years old. One of those present suggested that he most likely spent all his time cultivating, but in battle, experience is important, not cultivation. And they decided that since he was their youngest student, they needed to take care of him on the mission. The elder said that the student had already arrived. Feng Yun entered the room and said that he had come in response to their announcement to carry out a task. Zhang Tao greeted him warmly. He then introduced the rest of their group. The guy greeted them politely and introduced himself. He and Mirror scanned each member of the group. The girl turned out to be a real gift. She is a master with a mid-rank tree attribute and a 3rd-level practice. The most important thing is that with the attributes of wood and fire, he can become an alchemist. But our hero had an ethical question. He believed that it was not appropriate for him to fight with a girl. But Jing pointed out that in the future, he would sooner or later encounter a female enemy, and in a real battle, there would be no time to think about gender. He was looking at the girl a little too closely while he was lost in his thoughts. This did not escape the attention of the group. They attacked him, saying that it was too early for him to stare at girls. Zhang Tao urged them to get down to business. Since Feng Yun was going on a law enforcement case for the first time, the boss told him to keep a low profile and cover their back. This is exactly what our hero needed. But the other members of the group did not think so. They said that they did not sign up to be nannies. Although some of them had also accidentally ended up on a mission before. Hualin countered that it was an accident, and Feng Yun had deliberately chosen a task that was not his rank. Zhang Tao ordered everyone to shut up. Their mission was located under one of the restaurants in the inner city, and they had to work at night when there were few people. They started 2 hours later. The group of 4 burst into the room, and Feng Yun was left on guard at the entrance. He decided to farm copies of the group members while no one was there. The light was on in the room, and there were people sitting at the table. There were also 4 of them, and they were drinking alcohol. Zhang Tao with a harpoon, and others with their weapons attacked the bandits. They weren't scared and shouted that since they had come themselves, they would kill them. Feng Yun, hearing this, thought that it should be the other way around. In theory, it should be secret societies that make forays at night, not law enforcement officers. There was a fight going on in the room. The bandits were not weak. They successfully dodged blows and weapons. Suspicions arose that the gang members possessed attributes of darkness and therefore were easily evaded. Zhang Tao went at them with a huge sledgehammer, but they were invisible and kept disappearing somewhere. The information about the gang was completely wrong. One of the group was stabbed. The bandits used shadow weapons, and it was extremely dangerous for the group. Complete chaos ensued, and there was no unified strategy to combat the shadow attributes. Zhang shouted that all 4 gang members had the darkness attribute. This attribute was incredibly rare, and it was simply impossible to expect that 4 of them would have it in one place. Now the law enforcement officers were forced to take up a circular defense. The girl shouted that now it became clear why the gang was constantly able to secretly kill high-ranking officials of the base. The group realized that they had to leave, otherwise they would either all be killed or suffer heavy losses. Zhang said that they had fallen into a trap and the 5th criminal had escaped, which meant that Feng Yun was most likely already dead. The 5th criminal escaped and fell from a height, landing right at Feng Yun's feet. He put a sword to him and demanded to know how many more bandits with attributes of darkness were inside. The bandit laughed and said that all 4 of them, including him, had the talent of darkness. And therefore their whole group was finished. Feng Yun, saying that he was wrong to think so, finished off the bandit. Mirror said that she did not advise Feng Yun to save the group, otherwise he might be exposed. But this time the director will not help. But Feng Yun replied that even though they had just met, he did not want to see them die. But if someone repaid good with evil, he would kill them without hesitation. Jing was upset. She understood that with such a noble character, his path in the future would not be easy, and she seemed to have made a mistake in her choice. Zhang asked if anyone's communication device was working. It turned out that it wasn't. It seemed like there was a jamming formation in the room. The girl said that they needed to hold out until dawn, and then they would send someone for them. Juntao replied that even during the day with the attribute of darkness they would be able to hide, and then the bandits would cut down everyone who came to their aid. But the likelihood that they would send real masters was low. The group understood that they were doomed. The bravest one was the girl. She told them to fight and not lose heart, and maybe someone would manage to escape. Suddenly, Mei saw a huge knife right in front of her nose. She thought that this was the end of her journey. But at that very moment, the bandit was killed by Feng Yun's sword. Then our hero rushed to fight the gang and laid them down one after another. Zhang Tao, who was now watching the fight as a spectator, did not understand what was helping Feng Yun see the attackers. After all, his questionnaire said that he was a master of the initial rank. Feng Yun told Jing that it was great that the mirror could scan anyone in its line of sight. She wanted to know if he was intentionally giving in to the bandits. Our hero used the first-level technique, chopping strike. The last member of the gang has fallen. Our hero has won. The rescued Zhang Tao and his team rushed to him. What they saw from the side was an incredible sight. But the mystery of Feng Yun's capabilities remained. Our hero lied that his very good sense of smell helped him and that the bandits smelled like a beer keg. But they didn't believe him. They were experienced craftsmen, not children, because the members of the assassin gang always make sure that there is no smell from them. But they did not ask him any further. They had to return urgently. Everyone returned to the base, placed the wounded comrade in the infirmary, and began to eat dinner. Later, the wounded man joined them. He said that his vital organs were not damaged. He had received a blood transfusion, and now he could join the others and would soon be ready for new missions. Zhang Tao said that if it weren't for Feng Yun, they wouldn't be sitting like this. He modestly replied that he was simply in the right place at the right time. He added that if all the bandits did not have attributes of darkness, the group would have easily dealt with them themselves. The girl said that a trap had been set for them and someone had informed the gang. Zhang Tao turned to our hero and said that they had already transmitted the information about the successful completion of the task to the academy and that after eating he could return. Feng Yun thanked. He returned with the thought that he himself did not want to get involved in their problems. Returning to the dormitory, Feng Yun began to look at what attributes he got after the quest. Unfortunately, the attribute of darkness was of low rank. Jing forbade him to grumble because the dark attribute is extremely rare. But he managed to obtain 4 at once, so, after combining them, he will gain a mid-rank dark talent. He asked if the resulting attribute would be strong, and what to do with it. Jing replied that if you don't take those who have a talent close to the mirror, you can hurt a master of the highest rank. But at the same time, the next moment he himself will die. Half a month passed. He practiced with the dark energy and studied its properties. It was not like the energy of water or wind. It was calm. Although Feng Yun had not yet cultivated the darkness attribute practice, he already felt a connection with the surroundings. He understood that at that time the members of the group would hardly believe that he had determined the location of the bandits by smell, and that questions might arise not only from them. But he earned 2,000 points and could now look into the Tower of Pure Energy. The door opened and he walked inside. It was incredibly majestic there. Feng Yun sat in the center of the glowing circle and began to pump energy through his body. The energy in the tower was much denser than outside, and it was the best place for cultivation. An hour later, he was so saturated with energy that he seemed to flare up. He decided that he needed to become stronger as quickly as possible, and he wanted to go to the 3rd floor. An hour of cultivation at level 3 cost 1,000 points. He had enough points for 2 hours. He really hoped it would be worth it. But just as Feng Yun was about to put his pass in, someone called out to him. The tall guy asked if he knew that seats on the higher floors had to be reserved in advance. The higher the level, the fewer rooms there are. And if they weren't booked in advance, there would be a long queue. Our hero understood that they were just trying to hook him, but he didn't fall for it and said quite politely that he would book it, but he didn't know who. The guy laughingly replied that he did. Feng Yun dealt the impudent man a strong blow to the middle of his chest. The guy fell to his knees and our hero was very pleased that he now had an extra 1,000 and could pay for 3 hours. He hadn't even had time to apply the pass to the chip for the second time when he was called out again. Our hero thought that he could use some extra points, since they were asking for trouble themselves. In front of him stood 2 men with samurai swords on their backs. They sarcastically asked if he was the one collecting money from the students in the tower, and if he was, then he was caught. The door opened, but the 2 did not let go in order to stop. These 2 were brothers. Feng Yun quickly scanned them. It turned out that these 2 were among the strongest in the academy and were top-ranked masters. Rank 18 and 19. Starblades. Both of them had the talent of the sword path. Although it does not directly affect the cultivation, it greatly increases the overall power. He thought that such specific talents would not be a problem for him. He decided that he would cultivate and farm these 2 at the same time. During the farming process, our hero felt that they were really very strong. The brothers were inseparable and even fought together. It was impossible to farm alone. The fights with them were very difficult and energy-consuming. Feng Yun wielded 2 swords. This made it easier to repel their attacks. After 3 hours of cultivation in the tower, our hero was full of energy. The other disciples were cultivating next to him. They noticed that their swords seemed to be about to fly. Something strange was happening with the weapon. The brothers also realized that there was someone cultivating the way of the sword in the tower, but it was impossible since they were the only ones who were considered to have such talent. And despite the fact that our hero was only able to knock out 1 mid-rank sword path talent and the second-level stone strike technique, it brought great results. Feng Yun felt such control over the weapon, as if the sword had become an extension of his hand. Now he could understand the star sword and slashing techniques even more deeply thanks to his talent in the way of the sword. The notification that his time was up pinged. 3 hours in the tower had flown by almost unnoticed. It felt like he had only just begun. He went to the main hall of the academy to choose a new task for himself. While he was studying the board, someone called his name. They were his 3 colleagues from Highland Academy. They said that they had never had time to thank him because it was thanks to Yun that they were able to pass the entrance exam. Although their praises were very pleasant, the place was clearly not suitable. They could provoke someone from the surrounding area, and newcomers were not welcome here anyway. Mao asked him to let Feng Yun take them on missions together because they earn few points on their own. And they have nothing to cultivate with. Our hero looked at Mao and thought that on the one hand their presence would greatly limit him. On the other hand, they were a good cover. He agreed and told them to follow him. He smiled at the trio and said it was time to hit the jackpot. They headed to the training room. The room's records were quite high. Bai cautiously pointed out that with Yun's current talents, he would hardly be able to beat them. Yun chuckled, saying that because of the high difficulty, the reward was high. 100,000 points. There were quite a lot of people in the main hall of the academy at that hour. 2 of the students passing by the gym noticed that the sign above the door had changed. They did not remember anyone setting new records in the last 10 years. Indeed, someone 15 years old set a new record. The name on the electronic board said it was Bai. They didn't know him. Meanwhile, in the hall, Feng Yun asked Bai to check if his points balance had been updated. Bai checked his account and confirmed it. Our hero told Yang Tian to do the same. Thanks to Feng Yun, his points also increased significantly. Feng Yun did another exercise. He hit 10,126. He smiled that he couldn't hold back a little. The boys were amazed by the power of his strength. Meanwhile, a crowd had already gathered at the entrance to the training hall, staring at the electronic scoreboard, which was not updating the records for various exercises. Now it was Mao's turn. Feng Yun hit a whopping 10,134. Records were falling one after another. Feng Yun was extremely pleased with his cunning and was able to test his strength and increase the guy's scores. The crowd outside the door was puzzled that so many records could be set in one day, and one of them was set by a girl. The teachers saw something happening near the training hall and headed there. They wanted to see new record holders. The students pointed to the hall and said that they were still there. Mao, Bai, and Yang Tian walked out of the hall. The teachers asked if they had really just set records. The students confirmed it. Feng Yun used the dark attribute for the first time and walked out of the training hall unnoticed. And he succeeded. Each of the 3 gave him 50,000 points. The remaining half was a worthy reward for their silence. It was a great deal. He made 150,000 without attracting attention. He said goodbye to the guys and went to the 5th floor of the tower. The 3 friends said that without Brother Yun, they would have saved up points until old age. But they still felt awkward that he left them so many points for nothing. He replied that it would be beneficial for him too if they also improved well. Bao believed that 5 hours of cultivation would be enough for them to break through to the master rank, and Feng Yun himself would be able to break through to the middle rank with his 150,000 points. And then it would be much easier to complete tasks together. And they shook hands. Feng Yun had been cultivating in the tower for 9 hours. He had mastered the second-tier dark attribute to perfection. And here it is, the long-awaited breakthrough. Feng Yun became a mid-level master. The speed of absorbing dark energy increased many times. All he had to do was find the water and wind practices. Increasing the speed of energy condensation will allow it to cultivate faster, and then it will sooner reach the point of unification with the environment and reach the top. So, 9 hours of cultivation was enough to become a mid-rank master. Feng Yun still had 60,000 points left, which he planned to use to obtain a new attribute. Bai called out to him. They had been cultivating for 5 hours, so they came out early. Yang Tian and Mao had gone to class, and Bai was free today, so he decided to wait for Feng Yun from the tower. Our hero broke out in a sweat at the mention of lessons. He was so carried away by the practices that he completely forgot that he was a student of the academy and was obliged to attend classes. Bai said that he was wrong to neglect his studies because theory is very important for improving martial arts. Feng Yun replied that Bai was absolutely right, but our hero had his own motives. He wanted to mirror the teachers. They went with Bai to the information computer and began studying the teacher's files. Bai recommended him to choose Teacher Ma. He explains all strengthening techniques up to the 3rd level best, and the classes are not expensive. Only 100 points. Bai recommended more and more teachers until Feng Yun got angry at him and told him to shut up. Yun chose 10 teachers and 10 practices. Bai didn't understand why he needed so many. Although Feng Yun had more than enough money, he said goodbye to the annoying Bai and hurried to classes. Bai did not understand how he was going to attend them, because they were all held at the same time. Yun casually said that he would look at whose was more interesting. People with attributive practices develop faster, and it is much more likely that such a master will be appointed as a teacher. This is what our hero was counting on. Feng Yun asked Bai to wait until he returned. Bai thought that Yun was such a genius that he, an ordinary person, could not understand his plans. Our hero entered audience 31. The teacher was outraged that the student was late for half the lesson. The teacher's rage knew no bounds that this impudent Yun openly disregarded the academy's rules. But Mao was very happy that little brother Yun would now study with her. Yun moved closer to the teacher to scan him. The result didn't impress him. Too weak. It was too lazy to even farm it. He turned around and walked out of the classroom. The teacher was shocked by such impudence. Our hero visited 9 more classrooms and was also disappointed. None of the teachers had any practice with the attribute. Their level was too low for him. Finally, he reached audience 519. It was his last hope. He was curious if anyone would surprise him today. The teacher turned out to be an incredible beauty, and a blonde too. Her name was Shi Ruojan. All the male students were in love with her and went to classes to stare at the beauty. She laughed at it and wanted to show these blockheads her true strength. Shi Ruojan was surprised to see one of the students, whom she was seeing for the first time, stand up and walk out of the classroom. There was nothing more for him to do there because the scan was complete. Even the beast runs to the hunter. Su had a mid-rank water talent and a 3rd-level water attribute practice. The attributes of water provide a restorative and healing effect. In case of injury or loss of strength, you can quickly recover. Feng Yun decided to do quests and farm at the same time. This is the best use of the mirror system. An excited Bai ran up to him, hurrying to tell him about the person he had just met. He met Lin Qiang, who had entered the academy by breaking through to the master level. Lin Qiang was the first one Feng Yun copied. Moreover, it turns out that he himself is looking for Yun. Bai whispered that it was probably for some very important matter and that he should not refuse him under any circumstances. Because he was close to the internal students of the academy, Lin Qiang went to them to find out if this was the Feng Yun he had heard so much about. He added that they were from the same academy, and he had business with our hero. He invited them to the information board. At the board, he said that the task concerns his family. Although the difficulty is listed as black, its actual rank is gray. Free 50,000. He said that he believed that Yun, with his strength, would not refuse such a chance. Yun replied that he would not refuse. From his first victory over Shi Ruojan, Feng Yun obtained the 3rd-level technique, Falling Petals Palm. Jing jealously said that he only defeated her on the 5th try. He asked Mirror to put a hood on the girls' heads so that he would not be ashamed to fight with women. Fights against female opponents have always been his weak point. Jing told him not to bother his head because in the future, when he encountered a female opponent, she would not be wearing a hood. He promised to work on himself and hurried to the Lin family on a mission. They arrived together with Bai at the Lin Ono estate. It looked very rich. Bai said that it was not too late to refuse. The Storm Squad had killed many masters and it was not so easy to deal with 2 top-ranked masters. Lin King met them and noted that the guys were punctual. Yun thought that when such a chance came, he couldn't hesitate and suggested that Bai leave if he was afraid. The Lin family, although wealthy, is still an ordinary family by the standards of the inner city. Lin Qiang said that his uncle was currently consulting with consultants on how to deal with the storm squad. Bai looked around and thought that the estate was like his family's. And Feng Yun wondered what this storm squad had done to their family. Lin Cao replied that when his cousin's trade caravan was heading to Purple Sun Base, they were attacked by a storm squad. They didn't just kill their brother, they also left their mark. They deliberately provoked the Lin family, and if they tolerated this, no one would want to have anything to do with them anymore. Lin Cao knocked on the door of the Great Hall. Bai thought that there was more than enough pathos here. And if it weren't for the fear of outshining Feng Yun, he would have shown them that the Bai family was cooler. The uncle greeted his nephew and asked who these people were who came with him, practically children. He replied that he had with him the disciples who had agreed to accept the task, Feng Yun and Bai. He introduced his uncle and the consultants to the disciples. Uncle asked about their statuses. From the information, he learned that one of them was a mid-rank master and the other was a low-rank master. One of the consultants got angry and said, "What a joke!" Uncle said that he indicated the rank of the task as black, hoping that there would be top students or even teachers, but some low-ranking teenagers came. The consultant said that they were 3 fools, and were they planning to overwhelm the enemy with numbers? Bai was indignant at being called a fool. And Lin Qiao asked not to underestimate Feng Yun, because he was not only the star of the entrance exam, but also accomplished many things, including helping law enforcement agencies deal with the Bloodthorn assassination team. Usadi said that it was a lie, and that he would first personally test the youth's strength. Yun shrugged and replied that he was just lucky on the mission. But if anything happens, he's ready. The mustachioed man challenged him to the arena for a fight. He ordered our hero to begin, but he politely replied that he was giving way to his elders. The mustachioed man grumbled that he asked for it and rushed forward. Feng Yun used a few simple techniques. Usadi said disappointedly that it was weak, and if that was all, then the fight was over. Feng Yun delivered a lightning-fast blow with pinpoint precision, which only slightly damaged the mustachioed man's stomach, and modestly said that that was it now. The enemy was defeated. The experts were impressed by how quickly the boy defeated a top-ranking master. The mustachioed man confirmed his defeat and bowed before Feng Yun. Bai was very happy, and Lin Qiao thought that it was good that it turned out this way. Otherwise, he would have had to return to the director with nothing. The people present apologized to the guy for saying too much and invited him to share a meal with them. If the task is successful, the family will be very grateful. Feng Yun wanted to say that he wanted the orphanage to be moved to the inner city and for the children to eat like that. But Bai stopped him, saying that they were sincere. Feng Yun thought that even delicious food wouldn't stop him from farming. He asked what had happened on the way and why the storm squad, which had previously only attacked small caravans, had attacked the Lin family that time. And they left their mark on purpose. One of the experts said he heard that the storm squad was the Purple Heart Base hunters. Uncle concluded that it was either a trap or someone wanted to use them to finish off the storm squad. But the Lin family couldn't ignore the challenge. Feng Yun knew that Purple Sun Base, like Starlight Base, was a third-class base, and that it was the closest to Starlight Base. Each of the bases sent several dozen masters and even several grandmasters. They spent enormous sums to build a road between the 2 bases. However, the road brought not only an opportunity for cooperation, but also a temptation for robbery. Yun thought that people in general are contradictory creatures, and that Lin Qiang used a big intrigue to create another, smaller one. He continued to farm even while eating, and for defeating Shi Rojan, he dropped the 3rd-level technique Butterfly Flutter. But the main conspiracy did not concern him. He only needed the attribute of fire. If he wants to protect himself, he must become stronger than anyone, no matter who. The group set off along the trade route. On the way, our hero thought that yesterday he had knocked out a mid-rank sword path talent, another one, and he would be able to improve it to the highest rank. Bai was afraid that there was a rank 6 beast roaming around these places that only a top-ranked master could handle. He sincerely regretted getting involved in this adventure with Yun. The group heard a strange sound not far ahead of them. Bai begged to save him if anything happened. Feng Yun asked Bai not to cling to him and not to whine. Uncle called them deep into the forest. The base must be somewhere nearby, but everyone should be careful. There are many traps in the forest. They decided to make some noise to lure them out. Uncle Lin said that they wouldn't push their luck, and anyway, they wanted to take the initiative from the start. The mustachioed Mr. Qi walked ahead, waving his sword. He shouted into the darkness of the forest that Daddy Qi was home. He saw a trap ahead and cut it into pieces with his sword. Uncle Lin said that one man is not a warrior in the field and ordered them to follow Mr. Qi. Everyone expressed their readiness. They ran after the mustachioed man. Uncle shouted for everyone to turn up the heat and push forward. Feng Yun also kept an eye on Bai to make sure he didn't get into trouble and asked him to focus on the enemies and forget about everything else. Mr. Lin barely escaped the trap. Daddy Qi used his huge sword to cut down trees in one fell swoop. They saw the base ahead. Feng Yun thought it was strange that the base was built right in the middle of the forest, and could ordinary monster hunters really do this? It was all very strange. Uncle said that everyone should be careful because they had previously sent several groups to deal with them. They reached this place, but they were unable to take the fortress. Key said that they were all a bunch of amateurs and that today was the Storm Squad's last day. Suddenly, fire appeared from underground right in front of Chi. A fiery centipede emerged from the crevice and reared up in front of them. Uncle shouted that they have some pets here. The monster grabbed Mr. Chi with its huge red mustache. Uncle said that they would not have time to do anything. Feng Yun took his sword and rushed at the monster, which had already opened its terrible mouth to swallow its prey. Uncle Lin was shocked that the guy used the third-level technique Butterfly Flutter. Feng Yun pierced the monster's head with his sword. The monster was defeated. The experts were completely stunned by the boy's actions. They realized that he had used the Butterfly Flutter technique, but he had used Wind Attribute Energy. But they knew that this technique was Water Attribute Energy. His movements indicated that he was at least a mid-rank Sword Lord, but also a Metal Attribute Lord. They were very confused because they couldn't figure out what this guy's attribute was. Mr. Qi was finally able to free himself from the centipede's tentacles. He asked the one who saved him to come forward. Everyone pointed at Feng Yun. Mr. Qi bowed respectfully to the boy and called him elder brother. He promised to fulfill any request from Mr. Yun, because he considered himself his debtor. Feng Yun thought ironically that he was a bit old for a younger brother. And Uncle Lin reminded Mr. Qi that he was their family's consultant. They approached the high gates of the base. Suddenly, arrows rained down on them from above. Feng Yun set up protective domes over everyone. Mr. Qi said that these were arrows made of alloy. This meant that they thought that they were bandits from the outer city. Feng Yun said that it was not as simple as they thought. Suddenly, a man was lowered on a rope through a hole in the wall of the tower. They saw with horror that it was Lin Qiao. The uncle was perplexed. It turns out that the nephew had been captured. And no one noticed when it happened. But Feng Yun knew there was a catch. If they had captured him, they should have put forward conditions in exchange for the hostage. But they had attacked first, and then shown the hostage. He ordered everyone to retreat back and himself used the third-level technique Butterfly Flutter. Clouds of some kind of smoke began to envelop the group. Our hero used the third-level technique Palm of Falling Petals. Clouds of poisonous gas began to envelop people. Everyone began to cough and choke. Feng Yun realized that the arrows contained pressurized poison. The bandits wanted to use Lin Chang to divert their attention from the poison, so that they would not notice what they were inhaling. The concentration of the poison reached a high level, and the squad could no longer fight. Feng Yun cut the rope that Lin Chang was hanging on with an invisible blow. He jumped down and stood with his sword against them. The uncle could not believe that his nephew had turned out to be a traitor to the family, but he only snorted in response. Raising his sword, he proclaimed that from now on, the power in the family would pass to his father and Lin Chang himself. And now they would breathe deeply. He said that he had taken revenge for his family being banished to the outer city, and that he had dedicated his life to becoming a master and returning to the inner city. Feng Yun snorted contemptuously and struck him with a shadow strike and grabbed his throat. Lin Chang croaked in surprise that he didn't expect Yun to still be able to fight. After all, everyone had been poisoned. Feng Yun answered because he is strong. Fortunately, he managed to defeat Sun Xiaomi and knock out the talent for wood, along with the talent for water. This gave the ability to neutralize poisons. Analytically, Feng Yun realized that the enemy had an antidote to the poison since he was not afraid to jump to the ground. He searched Lin Qiao and found a bottle of antidote. He took her in his arms. The toxic smoke cleared, and our hero saw that everyone was unconscious. This means Yun will have to do everything alone. He walked towards the gate alone. There were people standing there, looking in surprise at the child approaching them. The leader ordered to kill him. Yun decided to cheat and pretended to run away. The bandits began to catch up with the fugitive. The leader thought that he didn't like intrigue because it was boring. Our hero hit him in the jaw with a powerful shadow blow, saying that he also doesn't like intrigue. He struck one blow after another. The stupid bandits, when they rushed to catch up with him, fell into their own traps. A man was watching everything that was happening from the top of the tower. He informed the leader that these scum were finished, and it was their turn. He was wearing armor and a bandage on his face that covered one eye. The gang leader was feasting at a rich table. He turned to the people sitting at the table and said that there were 3 of them, and they had one opponent, a master of mid-rank. But he was involved in eliminating the Bloodthorn gang, so don't underestimate him. They said they were ready. Feng Yun picked up a large tree and began to hit the fortress gate with it. But they didn't give in. They were so strong. Someone said sarcastically that the assault was so-so and the doors swung open. On the threshold, Yun was met in a fighting stance by a man with an eye patch. A fight ensued, with each using a variety of techniques and methods. Another bandit jumped out and started using the wind wave technique. A girl jumped out and attacked him with the wind strike technique. He managed to successfully repel attacks from 3 attackers at once. The 3 bandits agreed that the guy was not bad and had experience, but most likely he would not fight to the death. Feng Yun also analyzed the difficult battle. These 3 are all middle-ranked, but have been hardened in fierce battles. If the 3 of them fought together, they could even kill a master at the peak of the realm. Jing suggested that she told him that sooner or later he would meet the girl in battle and the fight would be to the death. But there was no point in wasting time. He needed to finish with them quickly. He was pretty tired from today's battles. The one-eyed man threw 3 blades in his direction. Feng Yun thought it was great that one of them had floating blades. Share. From his point of view, the floating blades were very interesting. He used fire defense. The girl, hoping to knock the sword out of his hands, released many blades at once. Feng Yun flew into the air and grabbed the third attacker's staff. The third attacker laughed. Yun seemed to be glued to that damn staff. It was an unfamiliar technique for our hero. The bandit said that he couldn't run away from them now and he couldn't get away. He slammed Feng Yun to the ground like a rag doll. The one-eyed man rushed towards them, shouting that he would skin the guy alive. The third-level technique, choke, was used. Something had to be done quickly. Otherwise, he would be finished off at any moment. The girl told her friends that the boy was finished. But it was not to be. Feng Yun made an unexpected move. The girl realized that the boy had broken the wind staff with his fist, and her own technique had prompted him to do this. He shattered the staff, striking it hundreds of times in an instant. Amazing power. He would have simply crushed his hands. They decided that the guy was just a monster. Our hero raised his sword and moved towards the girl. She screamed at him to stay away. He walked and thought that this time the task was more difficult, and if he killed 5 members of the Storm Gang alone, he would get all the points. He started bending his fingers and realized that all the mid-ranking masters had been killed, and only 2 of the highest rank remained, and he needed to finish them off quickly. The girl, who had already accepted her death, suddenly saw Feng Yun turn around and walk towards the fortress. She thought that he had spared her on purpose. Jing yelled at him that he couldn't just let the enemy go. A noble fighter must kill anyone without hesitation, otherwise she would finish him off later when the opportunity arose. He replied that she had already surrendered and begged for mercy. But if she dared to stab him in the back, he would kill her without delay. Turning around, he saw that the girl had run away. There was a completely calm man with a sword sitting on the steps of the building. The man knew his name and addressed him by name. He said thoughtfully that they had underestimated him after all. Our hero realized that only Lin Qiang could have told them about him. The man confirmed his guess and told him not to get too worked up. The berries hadn't even started yet. Our hero used the Star Sword technique and the Butterfly Flutter technique. Feng Yun was not interested in the man's chatter and did not listen to him any further. The enemy was worthy, and for some time they fought on equal terms. He shouted to Feng Yun that he had a lot of tricks and it would be a good idea to join their gang. He chuckled that although the tricks were good, they were completely useless, and he would now demonstrate his true power. Feng Yun replied that since he was not a swordsman, he would now see his Yun's power. And with a slashing blow, the enemy was killed. Feng Yun also got it. He lay exhausted on the floor not far from the bandit's body. The enemy was tough, but our hero had a talent for the wood and water attributes, so he was able to quickly heal his wounds and restore energy. A boss fight is ahead. He even thought about interrupting the mission, but he still got up and went. The boss was already waiting for him. He felt sorry for his team and that now there would be a hassle with recruiting new ones. Suddenly, right next to his ear, he heard a quiet whisper. Someone said that he would help him with this problem. Dead people don't need subordinates. There was a sword pointed at the boss's neck. Using the attribute of darkness, Feng Yun sneaked up and dealt with the leader. He was even upset that he hadn't used it down there. He would have saved a lot of time and effort. He heard footsteps and turned around in surprise to see a girl walking towards him with her hands raised. He was upset that she had returned. He had almost no strength left for another fight. She said she came in peace. He asked what she could possibly want to thank him for staying alive. She replied that she could tell where the stormtroops' treasures were kept. In return, she asked that no one be told that she had managed to survive and that it was she who had shown the way to the treasure. Yun replied that how could he tell if he didn't even know her name? Besides, anyone who knew she was in the gang and didn't find her body among the others would understand. She reported that everyone who knew them by sight was dead. The rest knew only their call signs. She took the dead boss's body by the hand and dragged it to the safe. She placed the dead boss's hand on the chip and opened it. There was a gold card with no name on it. It contained everything they had managed to accumulate over the years, and at any third-rank base he could easily cash out the funds, and no one would be able to track it. But that wasn't the most valuable thing. She opened the safe. There was something shiny inside. It was a real treasure, a high-ranking spiritual stone, and the best price for it would only be given at bases above rank 3. Meanwhile, his group slowly began to recover from the effects of the toxic smoke. Bai kicked the tied-up Lin Qiao, saying that he almost died here because of him. They all headed to the castle. And there they saw traces of a recent struggle and dead bodies. They asked our hero if he had killed them all. He replied that he was too young for such things, that some unknown wanderer had come to help. He killed everyone and took everything valuable. Didn't even leave a copper coin. And it's unlikely that the Lin family will be able to get their money back now. Uncle Lin said that money was not the main thing. The main thing was that the family's face and honor were saved. With these words, the uncle jumped out of the window. He approached the traitorous nephew. There was no point in him coming back and spreading rumors. Yun returned with Bai to the academy. Bai told him that they had received a 50,000-point reward for the quest. But should they accept the reward from the Lin family as well? Feng Yun shook his head, saying that since some stranger helped put down the storm squad, this would be the price for their silence. Feng Yun returned to his room and took out a crystal. The energy stone is an extremely rare mineral. It contains the original energy. They also come in different ranks. Low, 20 to 40% of the original energy, medium 40 to 60%, and high more than 60%. His stone had 70% of the original energy. Yun went to the trading house and checked the card balance. The storm account had 100 million. Together with the hush money from the Lin family, he had quite a decent amount. He wondered if this money would be enough for his own house. The cost of real estate in the inner city was completely unknown to him. He approached the woman behind the counter. She decided that he was from some noble family. It was just a pity that he was so young. They could have flirted. She asked him what brought him to her. He had deliberately put on a school uniform and assumed an air of importance. He asked what private villas were for sale and how much they cost. She said about 500 to 600 million, and with the training arena, about 1 billion. She decided that the kid was just showing off, but it was funny to watch him. Houses were damn expensive within the base. He asked her to keep him in mind and let him know if anything worthwhile came up. He knew that without his own house, he wouldn't be able to move the shelter to the inner city. And he decided to give 1 million to the shelter director for the children's living expenses for now. He had been in the inner city for 2 months already, but had never gone outside. Feng Yun had hoped to meet someone here to mirror. Jing said that the streets were indeed full of masters, but there was also plenty of trash. And that on the 3rd level bases there are warrior associations. That's where real luck can smile. He walked and thought that he had long wanted to visit a high-ranking base, where there were associations of alchemists, artifact masters, formation creators, and of course masters with talents. Jing said that the sombrero is not for Huan yet, and if something goes wrong, he definitely won't survive. So farm, and farm some more. Meanwhile, unusually dressed people in masks came to the storm base. They realized that they were too late, and it was not even known who dealt with the gang. But they assumed when all this was being organized that something like this could happen. But there were video surveillance systems. People in masks watched them. They saw that it was the same boy again. They carefully watched the battles at the base. The masked men were amazed by what they saw, and that there could be such talent at a level 3 base. They were thinking about recruiting this genius. He's damn good, but they decided not to rush and test the guy again. Meanwhile, the Starlight Base Warrior Association was crowded. Our hero thought that it was somewhat similar to the Adventurers Guild from Fantasy, and he became interested in whether they provided a full social package. They greeted him there, to put it mildly, unfriendly. They decided that he had come to show off in front of those less talented than him. Feng Yun was looking for someone interesting to farm. He came across someone named Ding, a mid-level master. He had an interesting practice called demonic movement, but then he saw a much more interesting character. It was Li Quan Lightning Blade. The speed of his strike was unimaginable, and he cut off the head of a rank 6 king wolf. Feng Yun mirrored him and found out that Li Quan was a top-ranking master and possessed many different techniques, including the fire talent that our hero was looking for. Jing was also inspired. Having both the fire attribute talent and the sword path talent at the same time would allow him to kill a rank 6 monster. Nominally, they were equal in strength, but in a real fight, a top-ranked master is no match for such a beast. Only a warrior like Li Quan with 2 talents could defeat him. And Feng Yun, of course, could too. Li Quan had the feeling that he was being looked at by someone strong, like a top-ranking master, or someone at the peak of their skill. Feng Yun quickly projected a fight with this character and won. As a drop, he received a very valuable gift, a low-level weapon Starblade. He really needed a new sword, but he didn't want to spend the money to buy one. The market price for such a sword is about 1 million. It is forged from primordial energy ore and starstone. Feng Yun was extremely pleased and decided to continue farming Li Quan. 10 days passed. In the tower, 100,000 points were written off from him, and he only knocked out the talent for fire and was unable to break through to the highest level. Jing laughed that not everything is Maslenitsa for the cat, but he knocked out the 3rd-rank technique Path to the Stars and strengthened 2 middle-rank talents, which greatly increased his combat power. To make sure that he had mastered the listed skills, our hero decided to take on a new task. He walked up to the board and selected the rank 4 quest to kill a rank 6 saber-toothed tiger demon beast in the snow forest and get its tooth. The cost was 60,000 points. Besides the fang, he also wanted to get materials to sell. And he also hoped that a rank 6 beast might drop a very valuable drop. Finally, with his new abilities, Feng Yun could enter the central area of the forest. There, he first encountered the demonic hare and killed it. He put his skin in a bag and thought that the bag should have been bigger. He asked Jing if there were spatial bags or rings in this world. She replied that formation masters created them, but they were not available in third-rank cities, and there is also an extremely rare talent for the attribute of space. Feng Yun decided to look around and carefully walked further into the forest. Ahead, he saw some powerful surge of primordial energy and went in that direction. Hiding in the bushes, he saw that some large-scale battle was taking place there with the participation of a large number of people. He quickly ran there in the hope that he might find something there too. Yun ran to some settlement. Our hero thought, wow, there are so many masters in one place. All the trees around were swept away in the heat of battle. Only one remained standing. It turns out that all these people were fighting for the fruit that hung on the top of the surviving tree. Jing said that it was a condensation fruit. It could strengthen the body. It had to be eaten. Feng Yun said that if that was the case, he would go and get it. She said that there were hundreds more people down there who wanted it, and it wasn't a fact that even the masters at their peak would be able to get it. But Yun reminded her that he had the talent of darkness. Assassins are somewhat similar to thieves, so Yun covered his face just in case. People fought fiercely, not sparing each other. Feng Yun activated the darkness attribute and rushed after the fruit. Dodging blows and stones, he reached the fruit and plucked it. But with the fruit in his hand, he suddenly saw a group of strange people. Jing ordered him to run immediately. Unfortunately, he dropped the fruit while running. The coveted fruit ended up in someone's hands. Yun told the mirror to scan it. At first, Jing didn't understand who exactly needed to be scanned. Yun pointed at the one who grabbed the fruit. He said that he would then be able to knock the fruit out of his projection. Jing couldn't keep up. Everything was happening too fast. Feng Yun cursed that he would have to take it by force. He rushed into battle and was able to take away the coveted fruit. And he quickly ran away from there. He used the third-rank technique Path to the Stars. And many masters were killed by him in battle. As he walked away, someone was looking at his back. People were amazed that a lone wolf could kill so many. Subordinates asked the master to leave this place quickly and start looking for the saber-toothed tiger. Feng Yun put the fruit into his bag. Jing ordered him to quickly find a suitable place and consume the fruit. He thought that it would spoil quickly, but Mirror replied in the negative. Then he decided not to rush and return to the city. Jing asked if he was afraid of being robbed on the way. Yun replied that 20 years of experience playing in his past life told him that eating it right away was a waste of time. Besides, this thing can be sold at auction for several million. On the way, he killed another red-striped python and got a drop. Blood and flesh and scales. He thought that since he had copying, he needed to get the maximum profit from it, and he began to cut up the spoils. Suddenly, he heard a growl nearby and realized that he had found what he had originally come here for. A saber-toothed tiger? But while our hero was looking for the saber-toothed tiger, someone was hunting him too. The chairman and his company of subordinates discussed that they had finally found him and were preparing for the hunt. But they decided to wait for their son and his people to come to their aid. The chairman joyfully greeted his son. He said that they were just in time and would now surround the beast. The assistant noticed that the young gentleman's face had changed and asked what had happened. The young master saw the monster in the red cloak who had single-handedly taken out many masters. He pointed at Feng Yun to those around him. The father asked if his son knew this guy in the cloak. The hunters saw that the beast froze in its tracks because a stranger in a red cloak jumped out in front of it. They stood and looked at each other. The chairman took the sword and decided to go to help, since this was his son's friend. But the son asked not to interfere and not to provoke. Feng Yun told the tiger that his end had come. The talent he had extracted from Li Quan combined with his own had elevated him to the level of the highest rank. And what a great honor it is for a tiger to feel this power first. The chairman noted the sword's incredibly strong intent. Feng Yun and the tiger are locked in a fight that is fatal for one of them. The chairman and his men were deeply impressed by the spectacle. Feng Yun defeated the beast with just his intention. The son pulled his father away and begged him to run away, because this master had killed a rank 6 beast with just his intent. But his father pulled him back and said that such people should be friends. Moreover, if he decides to kill them, they won't be able to escape anyway. Feng Yun wasn't very happy with the boring fight. He didn't have to hit even once, and the beast itself went sour. The aura of 3 talents is too strong. Our hero sawed off a tiger tooth and decided to give it away for points, and sell the rest for a lot of money. A group of people greeted Yun from afar. He replied that the tiger was already dead and they could come closer. The chairman apologized for not knowing the hero's name and introduced himself as Dong, the chairman of the Divine Blade Company. Feng Yun introduced himself and said that he was a student. Mr. Dong said that it was then clear why Yun was so well-mannered and had extraordinary qualities, and offered his services to sell weapons at cost. Feng Yun replied that he didn't need anything for now and offered to buy materials from demonic beasts and saber-toothed tiger from him. He told the company that if they wanted to buy anything later, they should contact him. The chairman said that in 20 years in business for the first time, he felt cheated. Feng Yun returned to the academy and handed in the task. Now he wanted to work on the fruit. His Hailan Academy comrades saw on the computer that Brother Yun had finally written to them. He was waiting for them in the courtyard of the student dormitory. The three of them ran towards him with welcoming cries. He said that he had recently gone to the snowy forest and brought gifts for them. Yun handed the box to Bai, who sheepishly refused. Suddenly, Feng Yun said that he was confused and this box was for Yang Tian, and he handed it to Yang Tian, telling him to open it at home and not lose it on the way. Then Yun took the box and said that he had messed up again, because he wanted to give the gift to Mao. Mao cautiously extended her hand. Suddenly, he had messed up again. Yun said that he had changed his mind, and anyway, the gift wasn't very good. He announced that he was giving everyone 10,000 points, and that was it. They could leave. The friends were very embarrassed and thought that the joke was stupid, and the attitude was brutal. Jing, who was watching this scene, said that Yun was as cunning as a beast. He gave the fruit of concentration to each of the three and copied them, so that he could knock out more fruits from the copies. He was quite pleased with himself and regretted that he did not have 1,000 subordinates. Yun decided to eat 2 fruits and leave 2. One for copying, the other for emergency cases. The fruit turned out to be quite sour in taste. The sensations in the body were indescribable, as if someone took a sledgehammer and smashed his skull. Then put it back together and smashed it again. And so again and again. Time flew by and it became dark. It seemed to him that this pain in his body lasted forever. He didn't want to eat the second one at all. He looked at his body. It played with beautifully sculpted muscles. His arms were filling up with strength. The muscles were getting bigger and heavier. Jing said that his tyrant body had reached perfection, and now his punch was equal to 25 tons. Feng Yun regretted that he had to hide his strength. Otherwise, he would immediately go to the gym and break all the records. The mirror advised him to dress better. He had a good night's sleep and was ready to cultivate in the tower. His goal was to break through to the highest rank master. Mao called out to him. She was running towards him and her face was red. Our hero was surprised by this because, one way or another, she was a master and shouldn't be out of breath when running. She said that the annual ranking would be coming up very soon. She hoped that he would participate too. He said that he had plenty of things to do. She countered that anyone who is at the top of the rankings enjoys increased attention. Yun responded that this is precisely what he needs the least. Mao continued to persuade him, arguing that at this event he would be able to fight with the strongest students of the academy. The first place in the ranking gets the best dormitory, and also a stipend of 10,000 points daily. Here she touched the sore strings of his soul. A poor and hungry orphanage childhood made him greedy for material gain. He was not vain and indifferent to fame, but money would not be superfluous. He told her not to worry. He would take part in the ratings training camp. She said it wouldn't be easy. When the competition comes, everyone who trained outside, cultivated, will return to the academy. For example, there will be Luan Yunku, who cultivates the immortal diamond body berserker. And then there are the Chen brothers, nicknamed the Starblade pair, and the incomparable Prince Feng. Prince Feng is famous for cutting through a waterfall with one blow, and many other famous masters will take part in the competition. And of course, the first place in the ranking is the crazy sword Zhou Sheng. Feng Yun realized that he needed to prepare. Our hero took his magic crystal and went to the tower to meditate. He cultivated so hard that the crystal in his hands shattered, and he achieved his goal, breaking through to the highest level. He felt that after breaking through to the highest level, his sword skill increased tenfold. He's gone too far. The power was such that he literally blew the cultivation room apart. The employee who came running to the noise grabbed his head. He screamed that the moron doesn't even understand how expensive the energy collection formation is. 3 days later, Feng Yun stood near the student campus. He was practicing third-rank sword techniques right in the yard. The blade technique he received from Li Quan, combined with his enhanced talents for the fire and sword attributes, made him practically invincible. And all this was not at full strength. People gathered at the battle arena. It was the most grandiose celebration of the year. Feng Yun noted that talents had gathered like mushrooms after rain. It was imperative to copy them. He copied men without distinction, women only with attributes. Jing grumbled that it was sexist. He reminded her that he doesn't fight girls on principle. 3 of his friends called out to him. They wanted to know which arena Yun would perform in. He replied that it was the 5th. It turned out that they were all in different arenas. The friends realized that their strength was not enough. They didn't expect to make it to the top, but they promised to make every effort to hold out as long as possible. Each arena had 100 participants, 50 arenas in total. Through numerous battles, only 2 will remain. These 2 will fight for first place. Those who drop out too quickly will be expelled to make room for new students. The start of rating certification has been announced. There was only one rule. Defeat your opponent. Even if you kill someone, there will be no responsibility. The event is not for weaklings. These are the rules of survival in any academy. As in the cruel world, strength decides everything. Neither origin, nor wealth, nor natural abilities, only strength. This is a real natural selection of the strongest of the strongest. And Feng Yun wanted to defend his rights. He even had his own fans in the stands. Apart from his friends, there was also the chairman and his family. Uncle Lin regretted that his nephew had turned out to be a traitor. Even the one he had spared in the storm house came in a dark cloak. She thought that this was not the best way to remain unnoticed. She regretted that he was participating in ranking competitions. Our hero sincerely believed that he could defeat any master. There was still one of his group left. But he gave up without a fight and said that he had seen Feng Yun somewhere before. Yun also remembered that he was from the Divine Blade campaign, and they met when he was hunting the saber-toothed tiger. He bowed and said that it was a great honor for him that Mr. Yun remembered him. His father thought his son had behaved like a sheep by humiliating himself in front of this kid. After the first round, each of the 50 arenas would have 2 participants remaining, who would form the top 100 strongest to continue in the second round of the competition. Feng Yun got to the top as expected. But Bai also got there, which greatly surprised his friends. Bai said that it was thanks to Yun that he earned points on the mission and cultivated. In the second round, newcomers do not have a place in the ranking, but can challenge any of the strongest to take their place. Each can challenge 3 times. He thought that if he challenged Zhou Sheng straight away, he could immediately take first place without wasting any more energy. But if you get exhausted at the very beginning of the second round, you will not have the strength for further battles. Everything is not so simple and you need to act carefully. But while he was thinking, he was challenged himself. It was one of the Starblade brothers, 19th place in the ranking, Cheng Guang. The audience was in anticipation of an interesting battle. Legends were already being made about the exploits of the newcomer to the academy. Cheng Guang, standing opposite him, told Yun not to delude himself about his strength, and that he had only summoned him to take revenge for his disrespectful behavior in the tower. Feng Yun said that he was talking nonsense, but the enemy ordered to start fighting. Feng Yun chuckled. He had defeated these brothers in the mirror world so many times that he knew all their moves and techniques by heart. But he did not want to reveal his strength right away. Cheng Guang was surprised that Yun was so arrogant that he wanted to fight him without a sword. He reminded him that he was just a pathetic disciple. Yun replied that he was also a disciple. The opponent promised to show the difference between them right now, and he used the 3rd-level technique, Shining Strike. Feng Yun stood still and simply intercepted the shockwave energy with his right hand. Now he decided to test how much stronger he had become after the recent events. The blows bounced off his body like peas off a wall. The spectators were amazed. The opponent, seeing that his techniques were being reflected by the opponent without any problem, was confused. Our hero was just waiting for this moment. It's his turn. He moved towards the enemy and a shining sword appeared in his hands. The finale was swiftly short. Cheng Guang lay unconscious on the ground, his brother screaming in rage on the stands. What had happened was beyond comprehension. Yun's friends ran up to him and said that he was great. The wounded Cheng Guang was taken to the infirmary. He lay there and stared blankly at the ceiling. His brother came to see him. The brother tried to console him and said that he had already challenged Feng Yun and would definitely take revenge on him. The brother complained that he had not trained hard enough, but he said that he should not blame himself and that this Yun was clearly a master of body tempering and had smuggled the sword in secret. Now they were standing opposite each other in the arena. Brother said that Feng Yun was too arrogant and suggested that he give up. Although the rules allow it, it has never happened before that a higher-ranked person would challenge someone lower. Yun modestly and calmly said that for him he is a passing option, and his goal is first place. The opponent said that he could not be angered, and he would destroy Feng Yun with the same technique that his brother used. And he used the same shining strike. The top-ranked Zhou Sheng was watching the fight from above. He was absolutely calm and unperturbed. Yun noted to himself that his opponent had become noticeably stronger since he had copied him, but he was still not worthy of him drawing his sword. Feng Yun had no intention of drawing his sword. He wanted to defeat the saber-toothed tiger with just one intention, and he did it brilliantly. Cheng Ming's mouth started bleeding and he fell unconscious. The people in the stands realized that Feng Yun was so perfect in the sword technique that he could knock out his opponent with the mere intention of drawing his sword. It looked magical from the outside. The Academy's leaders were already rushing to the arena. They thought it was incredible that at 15 years old, one could master such swordsmanship and such power, and destroy the formation with bare hands. The fans in the stands were happy to see the top 10 masters. In strength, Zhengshan has no competition. Against him was Wang Qiu. Wang Qiu was good at speed and long-range attacks, and she had a special technique. Feng Yun watched the fight from the stands and wondered whether to copy them or not. By analogy with the will of the sword, there is the will of the legs. But in Zhengshan, it is not even half-formed. But our hero believed that when there is no fish, even a crayfish is a fish, and that he should copy this character in order to increase his fighting power. In the fight with Wang Qiu, Zhengshan won. Jing noted that he was cruel. In this world, the strong always eat the weak, so in the academy, he would not be punished for his cruelty, but only encouraged. She recommended that our hero quickly abandon the thinking of another world. He decided that Jing was right, and that in addition to strength, determination was also needed. Someone entered the arena at the 5 rating. It was a girl with red hair, the beauty Hu Qing. Feng Yun scanned her and determined that she had a third-rank Azure Pattern Pill. It could strengthen both the body and the foundation, although it was useless to him at this stage. Jing said that he would then copy the top 3 and be able to knock out everything he needed. But he noticed that no one dared to challenge the top 3. The top 3 were as follows. Third place was Prince Feng, also known as Lu Xuan. Second place was Berserker, and first place was the Mad Sword Zhou Sheng. These 3 were head and shoulders above the rest. At that moment, our hero was in 19th place and did not want to immediately challenge the first place. It would look too pompous, so he decided to start with someone familiar. He challenged Zhengshan to a fight. He was glad to stretch his legs. His friends were actively cheering for Brother Yun in the stands and hoping for his perfect sword technique. The duel began. Before the fight, Feng Yun fought with Zhengshan's copy 10 times, but his original turned out to be much stronger and tougher, and the enemy was not going to restrain himself. Our hero thought that it would be a good idea to dispel the point. Mirror scolded him for revealing the new technique, but he was eager to try it out and see the result. He used the third-level technique Tornado. The audience could not believe their eyes that the technique had such destructive power. It's simply breathtaking. His friends noticed that Brother Yun did not take the sword and thought it was madness. The opponents began kicking each other. Everyone in the stands thought that Feng Yun was a swordsman and never expected that he could kick. The powerful release of energy indicated that they both used the same techniques. The opponents stood opposite each other. Suddenly, Zhengshan bowed his head and admitted defeat. Feng Yun accepted it and stopped fighting. His opponent seriously injured his leg. It turned out that Feng Yun's body was stronger than Zhengshan's. Next up was 9th place, but he could only challenge 3 times. Maybe it was time to bother someone higher ranked. While he was thinking, a man jumped down from behind. The man said that Feng Yun was a tough nut to crack and he became curious. He said that he understood that our hero was aiming for first place, but first he offered to test his strength against him. This was a real gift from fate for Feng Yun. The Academy's leadership believed that despite Yun's obvious strength, he would not be able to cope with Berserker. Mr. Li remembered that last time he lost the lead because Lu Xuan had worn him out before the fight with Zhou Sheng. But now, he had perfected the practice of the diamond body. This is a third-level practice, and with a mid-level physical talent, he was able to achieve perfection in this practice in a year. Either a miracle or hard work. Feng Yun scanned Berserker and admitted that he was a formidable opponent in close combat. Jing advised him to take a sword into battle. Feng Yun replied in the negative. He said that it was rare to meet an opponent on whom he could test his physical strength, and he was not going to miss the chance. Jing screamed that he was a fool and that it was better to conduct experiments on copies. But Feng Yun was young and very stubborn. He engaged in hand-to-hand combat with Berserker. His friends from the stands actively supported him, and Mao even promised to fight for a place in the ranking next year. The opponent used the third-level Tiger's Roar technique against Feng Yun. Yun used the third-level technique, Falling Petals Palm. The spectators were amazed by the strength of the opponent's bodies. No one wanted to give in. The opponent raised his hand and asked to stop the fight. He said that Feng Yun was a worthy opponent and therefore, he would not use weapons either. And he took off his gloves and threw them away. They began to fight again. The opponent used the third-level Iron Fist technique. Feng Yun used the Divine Fist technique. But our hero was at a disadvantage in hand-to-hand combat since all his techniques were level 2. Something had to be done urgently. The opponent, of course, appreciated that the Swordmaster was fighting him in hand-to-hand combat almost on equal terms, but it was time to finish him off. Feng Yun received a powerful blow to the chest. For the decisive blow, the opponent decided to use the third-rank technique, Diamond Fist. If you constantly use the same technique, the enemy will quickly discover a weakness. And our hero used the technique Palm of Falling Petals. He decided to cope without techniques. He flew up and raised his leg to strike. The so-called techniques are moves that use true energy. Any attack that is filled with true energy can be called a technique. Jing believed that the techniques were developed by geniuses over many generations to reduce the consumption of true energy and increase strength. There are many ways to use energy. There was one in the Storm Squad that was able to stick without any innate talent. Feng Yun prepared to strike. Since then, he constantly thought about what true energy was capable of. His palm was a clot of energy at that moment. Will oppositely charged flows be attracted and identical flows repel? This is what he was about to check now. Feng Yun believed that if he changed the flow of energy in his body, he might be able to achieve permanent repulsion. The enemy was confused and did not understand what Yun was planning. He fell on his butt from the impact. His hand got stuck in the ground. It was impossible to pull the arm out by brute force, and it was difficult to use skills in this position. He thought that if he turned over, not only would he be able to use his other hand, but he would also be able to dodge Feng Yun's attack. He remembered how he had fought with Zhou Sheng a year ago. Then his rival told him that although he was worthy of the championship, he would never get it. Because after the battle with Lu Xuan, he was greatly weakened and allowed his weakness to be seen. When you use your body as a weapon, you can't dodge. And then you can win with one blow. Chan Xin would describe himself not as a weapon, but as a ram rushing straight ahead, but never to shy away. This was his path, which made him himself. So he put his hand forward. The blow was so strong that blood gushed from his mouth. Berserker lost the fight to a 15-year-old newbie. The stands were frozen. Zhang Xin had lost to a swordsman in hand-to-hand combat, and it was unclear what kind of technique Feng Yun had used. It was something that no one could have even dreamed of. It's Zhou Sheng's turn. Yun helped Zhang Xin to his feet. Zhang Xin asked him to win the ranking and take first place in the list of the strongest. An anxious murmur swept through the stands. The scoreboard showed that Feng Yun had challenged the #1 contender. It was simply insane. A handsome man with long blonde hair and pale skin walked into the arena and greeted Feng Yun, and that he had reached the peak of the battle. The audience screamed and chanted "peak battle," but our hero didn't even know what it was. For this, he was booed and pelted with empty bottles and all sorts of rubbish. In the top list competitions, there are only 2 cases of peak battles. The first is if someone beats all the contenders and challenges the top one. The second is like now. He told our hero to draw his sword and accept the challenge. Someone brought Feng Yun his sword and handed it to him. He thanked him. He and Jing scanned the opponent. His name was Zhou Sheng, 19 years old, a top-ranked master, possessing many techniques and attributes. Strong, no doubt about it. They stood opposite each other, and there was such energy between them that the audience felt it purely physically. And they hadn't even started fighting yet. It was clear that they were both using sword intent to attack. If an ordinary mid-ranked expert had been between them, he would have been injured. So far, they have only crossed virtual swords with the power of their energy. An announcement was made throughout the arena that VIP guests located near the central arena were asked to move to another hall as quickly as possible. Only a few dared to stay. Seeing the peak battle up close was worth any injury. Feng Yun took out his sword and suggested ending the preludes. Zhou Sheng supported him and said that it was time to move on to the real battle. Zhou Sheng used the 3rd-level technique Explosive Step and Bloody Cut. Feng Yun used the 3rd-level Star Sword technique. They crossed their swords in close combat. Our hero was wounded. His defense did not work. The opponent laughed and said that he had overestimated Feng Yun's strength. Feng Yun looked confused. The fight was starting off badly for him. His comrades in the stands were very excited and thought that it was not worth challenging for the first place. He had already done well. Mr. Li told his companion that there was still a gap between the rivals' forces. Although Feng Yun was only 15 years old, the companion said that you can't count your chickens before they hatch. Feng Yun came to his senses and used the Blazing Flame Blade technique. His opponent praised him for mastering not only the blade but also the fire attribute, and for his renewed interest in their battle. Zhou Sheng used the Blood and Fire technique. Our hero thought it was impossible because the scan showed that the opponent had no talent for the fire attribute. Or was this high temperature caused by the friction of air against the true energy covering the blade when using the technique? Yun whispered that he had lost. Jing urged him to admit defeat and come back next year to win. But our hero did not want to give up and told Mirror that he had not shown his main trump card. Zhou Sheng asked if the enemy wanted to stop fighting and admit defeat. Feng Yun said he was ready to continue fighting. The opponent flashed his fiery, angry eyes and thought that the boy had apparently not shown his entire arsenal yet. It was too early to relax. But it was even more effective this way. Mirror begged Feng Yun not to do anything stupid. This fight wasn't the end of the world, but life could be lost. But he asked to lower the replica's cultivation to an ordinary person and not interfere anymore. If Jing doesn't interfere, he will quickly defeat him. She decided that he had gone completely crazy in a state of affect and was going to fight 2 battles with Zhou Sheng at the same time. Feng Yun reminded her that his greatest asset was his multitasking, which he had tirelessly cultivated. She warned him again that he could be killed. Sheng also couldn't figure out what Yun was planning. He noticed that the wound on Feng Yun's chest had healed and realized that he had a talent for the attributes of water and wood. Then perhaps Feng Yun's trump card is his constant energy recovery and wound healing. This could mean that the opponent is going to exhaust Sheng. He decided to finish him off as quickly as possible so that he wouldn't end up in a battle of attrition. Feng Yun told Jing that he intended to drag out the battle while farming the enemy to knock out a high-ranking technique from him. It would be better if he had a talent for a sword or an attribute for metal. Zhou Sheng realized that the enemy intended to prolong the fight and threatened to defeat him with 1 blow. The stands did not understand what was happening. After the first blows, there were no powerful surges of energy. For some reason, they were holding back their strength and saving their energy. Feng Yun's friends also understood that the battle had reached a dead end. Bai believed in Yun's brother's victory, but others doubted his success because Yun had gone into deep defense. Zhou Sheng continued to strike, but did not use any of the techniques. Feng Yun thought that he wanted to compete with him in using pure energy. It seemed strange. The opponent couldn't help but notice that Yun had 2 attributes that restored his true energy. Then it was obvious that he was planning something. Sheng solemnly proclaimed that in the face of absolute strength, all the opponent's tricks were useless. The Academy's leaders realized that Zhou Sheng was preparing to use a secret move. Mr. Lee said that he would stop the fight to save Feng Yun's life. His colleague was against it. He thought it was time for students to learn the laws of the post-apocalyptic world. Mr. Lee felt sorry for Feng Yun's talent. The opponent countered that no matter how talented he was, if he didn't know when to retreat, it was a direct road to hell, and that who cares about Yun? He had neither money nor connections. The pressure around Yun was growing, as if he was caught in a web with no way to resist, only waiting to die. Zhou said mockingly that from his appearance it was clear that he was looking into the eyes of imminent death, and that this death is already inevitable. On the platform, Mr. Qi Heng exclaimed in surprise. He knew about weapons and realized that Zhou Sheng had mastered the 8th of the 9 forms of the blood sword. That was why he was delivering so many blows. This meant that Feng Yun was about to die. All the attacks that Sheng had made were aimed at transforming his true energy into a special energy that would envelop the entire arena. On the one hand, the special energy prevents the absorption of the energy of the attributes of water and wood. On the other hand, it allows the blood sword to use it for more powerful strikes. Feng Yun realized that he had fallen into an energy trap and that its weaving was the essence of Sheng's previous actions. Sheng once again offered him to surrender. There would be no third option. Either he had to surrender or die immediately. The stands froze. The friends understood that their brother was about to die. Mr. Lee's companion said that it was all over. But Mr. Lee said that he had promised the old director of Halen that he would take care of the boy. The companion was his superior and said harshly that some people were destined to die, and blocked Mr. Lee's actions to save the boy. But it wasn't all that bad. It wasn't the first time our hero had to resist a technique like Shen's. Not long ago in the mirror, Feng Yun was afraid that he wouldn't be able to repel such a blow, and Jing begged him not to fool around and give up. Now he knew what to do. He bit into his miracle fruit. That feeling of terrible pain came back to him. The internal pain was even stronger than the external one. He was filled with energy of monstrous power. He shouted to his opponent that this was not the first time he had resisted such a move. The risk paid off. Under external pressure, his body absorbed the condensation fruit faster. His hand was filled with incredible strength. The stands gasped. Even a cultivator at the peak of master couldn't withstand the blow that Zhou Sheng had prepared. Zhou Sheng himself was stunned. He couldn't understand what was happening to his opponent and why he was able to withstand the fatal blow. He accused Feng Yun of cheating. Of course, Yun was deceiving everyone in a sense, but he wasn't going to admit it, especially since it was his turn to strike. Zhou Sheng told him that he recognized his defense as very good, but he did not believe that he had any good attacking technique in his arsenal. Our hero did not want to listen to Sheng's rant about his shortcomings any longer. He unceremoniously turned towards the stands and shouted at Mr. Qi Heng. Our hero asked him to lend him his sword. Mr. Qi threw him his favorite sword. Our hero caught it deftly and was now juggling 2 swords. Mr. Qi Heng thought this guy was just awesome. Zhou Sheng realized that he was close to being disgraced. He himself did not understand what was happening and how he had ended up in a trap. Mr. Lee realized that the boy had the will of the sword. Our hero killed Shen's copy 7 times in the mirror world and was killed 9 times himself. But now it was his turn to kill him in real life. He used the fusion of sword will. His appearance was so terrifying and his fusion energy was so destructive that Zhou Sheng chose to surrender. The fight was won by a newbie. Zhou Sheng fell to his knees before our hero, begging for mercy. He was sobbing from fear, pain, and humiliation. The stands froze, unable to believe what was happening. It was the perfection of the will of the sword and blade in its purest form. Some guy said that even Zhou Sheng lost to Feng Yun. Our hero wondered if he was Prince Feng? That meant he was his opponent in the next round. He approached him on the platform and said that he had been waiting for him in the arena all day. But since the prince did not rise, Feng Yun decided to go down himself. They and Jing scanned the prince and saw that he had the wind attribute, which meant they needed to challenge him to a fight. But he raised his palms and said that he was giving up right away. He admitted that after Sheng's victory over Feng Yun, he wanted to quickly deal with him and take second place. All that was left for Mr. Lee to do was to name the winner of the ranking fights. He solemnly announced Feng Yun as the winner of this year's strongest ranking. He now had a daily passive income of 10,000 points. He spent all his previously earned points during cultivation to increase his rank. He also got the top 1 ranking clothes. They were a bit hot. He also had a place in an improved dormitory for top managers. Jing said with a laugh that everything was very pompous and that he shouldn't even think about being arrogant. He thought about it. Although he didn't have to worry about money now, he still didn't have enough to buy his own house. He needed to find a way to make money quickly. Jing said that killing monsters is not a very profitable method. It is much more profitable to produce and sell pills and weapons. He expected that, as a top 1, it would not be difficult for him to get a meeting with the alchemist and weaponsmith of the academy. He went straight to Mr. Lee with this question, and Mr. Lee was very surprised that the guy needed a 3rd-level pill master and a weaponsmith. Feng Yun replied that the 2nd-level pills were already useless for his cultivation. Mr. Lee said that even a 3rd-level master would not be able to easily create 3rd-level pills, but he promised to arrange a meeting. They went to the master's house. Mr. Lee said that there are at least 10 strong masters here, and the weakest of them is a top-ranking master. The rest are already at the peak of their skills, and they are all here to protect the pill master. To say that the master looked extravagant is to say nothing. He welcomed Li Feng to his humble abode and asked what such a busy man needed from him. Li Feng replied that he was on business and that he was far from his genius level of a third-level alchemy master at 34 years old. The master was pleased with these words. Feng Yun scanned the alchemy master. The master was curious about the guest that Li Feng had brought. Li Feng introduced the new top 1 ranking of this year's academy disciples. He said that despite his very young age, Feng Yun had mastered the will of the blade and sword. The master of alchemy thought that this was very curious, and that the guy needed to be examined. Feng Yun and Jing were afraid that he wanted to lick them like those poisonous fish. Li Feng said that this was Mr. Wang Ziqing and he was the only third-rank alchemy master in the academy. He said that he could call him Old Wang. Our hero thought that he would never agree to live next door to such a guy. Old Wang learned that Feng Yun was asking for a third-level pill, but he didn't have one at that time. But Old Man Wang liked our hero so much that he gave him 20 pills for strengthening the body and qi. And if he doesn't need them, he allows him to give them to his friends and relatives. They warmly thanked the alchemist and went back to the academy. Feng Yun decided to send the pills to the orphanage. For the next 3 days, our hero farmed at home. It was nice that he didn't have to buy an alchemy furnace anymore, but Old Man Wang's was kind of small. Jing called him stupid and said that no alchemist would carry around a huge furnace. Feng Yun couldn't wait to try out the experience he had gained from the alchemist's farm. This was a new stage in his life. At first, he decided to use wind attribute qi to suspend the cauldron in the air. He then wanted to use the fire attribute qi to heat the furnace and maintain the temperature. He then took the herbs to make the pills and protected them with wood attribute qi so that they would not lose their properties when heated. Wang's talent amazed him. Feng Yun knew that if he had to study alchemy from scratch, even if he spent 3 times more time, he would not have reached such heights. But even with Van's experience, our hero almost ruined one of the simplest blood energy pills. Jing said that experience is not everything. Practice and attention are needed. And that if he wanted to become an alchemist, he had to practice constantly. Feng Yun said that the warm-up was over and it was time to move on to the second-level pills. Energy restoration and wound healing. In this way, our hero hoped to save money for a house. Jing was angry that he didn't listen to her and was in a hurry. At home, Feng Yun was already stamping out pill bottles on an almost industrial scale. Already 200 bottles were ready. Each one could sell for $1 million. He put the vials in his backpack and thought that alchemy really was the most profitable business, and that alchemists must be rolling in clover. It was already late evening when he went out into the yard with a huge backpack on his back. The students wondered in bewilderment where he was going at this hour of the night, but did not dare ask. Feng Yun headed straight to the Starlight-based city's shopping street. His feet led him to a familiar store called Black Rose. A girl in a uniform greeted me at the door with a bow. She saw his clothes and realized that the best student of the academy had come to visit them. She asked him to wait and rushed to call the manager. Yun thought that was too much honor. From the depths of the shop, a beautiful dark-haired woman in a red dress appeared. She said that it was a great honor for their humble shop to welcome the best student. Jing scanned her and chuckled that it was no wonder she had her own shop, since she was a warrior with talent. Feng Yun said that was a jackpot. He took 1 flask out of his backpack and handed it to the shop owner. Our hero said that he wanted to sell some pills. She uncorked the bottle and sniffed it. The rich aroma simply delighted her. The woman asked if their guest was an alchemist. They saw how many bottles were in his backpack and were literally stunned. They were amazed that he brought so many pills at once. He confirmed and said that these were 2 types of pills. For restoring energy and wound healing pills. They were literally stunned, because these were second-level pills. Feng Yun said that if they don't like the product, he will go to another store. But the owner literally grabbed the backpack and assured that they take everything in bulk. The cost of 1 bottle of the second level on the market at that time was $2 million. For his 211 bottles, he will receive $422 million. And she added that she is giving away her entire budget. He said the deal was done and held out his card. The price was twice what he had expected. Having received the money, he said goodbye to the women and walked away. The shop owner, looking after him, told her subordinate that since he was a third-level alchemist, it was no wonder he was able to win the ranking championship. The subordinate timidly asked if they could make a profit on top with such a purchase price for the pills, but the owner said that it was impossible to let him go to the competitors. Feng Yun thought about how easy it was to earn so much money. A few more attempts and he would be able to buy a big house. Jing reproached him for trying too hard for the sake of the shelter. This energy should be, yes, in cultivation. He replied that she would not understand. After all, they are his family, and he is their hope. Our hero recalled that in his past life, he was so mired in vanity that he completely forgot what family was. When he was reborn into this world, it was the director of the orphanage in Xiaolong who were able to remind him of the warmth of his home. Now he had the opportunity to repay them for their kindness. On the way, he saw a shining sign of the Divine Blade store. Our hero had heard this name somewhere before. He decided to go in and take a look. His way was blocked by two powerful security guards. They said dismissively that the store had not yet opened. But when they saw what kind of clothes he was wearing, they immediately realized that they were in front of the academy's top one. Their faces instantly changed and expressed a mixture of fear and respect. Both bowed low and asked him to wait a little while to inform the director of his arrival. Feng Yun said he just came in out of curiosity, but the two of them had already run away. Yun decided to look at the assortment of weapons in the sales area. He looked at the beautiful and expensive weapons and wondered if he would be able to use the one on display with his current level of swordsmanship. The selection in the store was rich. He especially liked one sword. It would take time to knock out Zhou Sheng's bloody sword, and this one on display was much better. Joyful cries were heard from the depths of the store. Was it Brother Yun himself who had arrived? The bald man with the beard said that it was a great honor for their store to host the leading disciple of Starlight Academy. Feng Yun thought that the top one status was very helpful and recognized the bald-bearded man as the man who helped him with the body of the saber-toothed tiger in the snowy forest. The director confirmed and added that he had witnessed his triumphant victory in the ranking competition. He asked if Yun wanted to buy a new sword from them. The owner offered him any sword he liked as a gift. He said that they got the name Divine Blade because of the best craftsmen they invited, and that their shop is also in the neighboring city of the second-level base. Feng Yun thought that if they give you something, take it. If they beat you, run away. But you can't forget about decency, Yun told Mr. Dong that he could not simply accept an expensive gift and had enough money to buy it. Mr. Dong asked him to understand him correctly. It would be a great honor for him if the leading disciple himself used their weapon. Feng Yun asked him to help in choosing, as he had high requirements for compatibility. Yun outlined his requirements, and the director invited him into his office for a cup of coffee while the staff selected the necessary items to meet his compatibility requirements. Sabertooth! Cut! King screamed that she couldn't take it anymore and that he should immediately stop this farce. Feng Yun finished his presentation. He said goodbye to Mr. Dong and promised to come again. The big guys with two swords rushed after him. Feng Yun said contentedly that he could now get both swords by mirroring these two. Jing said that she would kill him someday. In the city, he suddenly saw Mr. Li. It was very inopportune. It was absolutely unnecessary for him to know about his small business. Our hero wanted to slip away unnoticed, but Mr. Li noticed him and said that he had something to talk to. He gestured for him to come over. The girl standing next to Mr. Li called him senior. Feng Yun said that he had only entered half a year ago. Li replied that in the academy, the position is determined by the ranking. The girl said that she didn't dare disturb them and left. Mr. Li informed our hero that Purple Sun Academy had invited them to their anniversary. He wanted to take him, Zhou Sheng, Lu Xuan, and Zhan Xin. Feng Yun asked, did the director really want to take the academy's top students with him to a normal protocol event? Mr. Li said that they had always been rivals with that academy, and they would definitely want to have a competition between the students. And asked if they could handle it? Our hero felt that the day he would leave the Starlight base was just around the corner, and he couldn't miss such an opportunity. Mr. Li was surprised by what the guy's backpack was stuffed with. Feng Yun came to the Black Rose shop again and said that he had made fresh pills. The owner was surprised that he produced so many pills every day. The owner noticed that Yun looked sick and said that if he needed money, the store could provide him with an interest-free loan. But he retorted that he had simply not slept for only a few nights and that it was not scary for a master of the highest rank. There was very little left to the coveted sum. He came to the real estate agency and said that he wanted to buy a house. The girl recognized him and was surprised that he became a leading student in a few days. She greeted him politely and said that they had just had some interesting offers and were ready to sell them to him at a discount as the best student. Meanwhile, in the outer city, a graduation party was taking place at the Yangguang restaurant. At one of the tables sat two girls and a guy. One of them was crying, and the other was comforting her. She said that they would still continue to communicate in the future. The front doors slammed open and two big guys tumbled into the restaurant. One of them said he had booked the entire restaurant for his cousin's celebration. Brother became a warrior and transferred to Starlight Academy. Visitors began to complain because no one warned them. The teacher told the students that they would have to look for another place because they could not cope with the warriors. One told the other that his authority was much higher than his, the leader of the local gang, and that he was counting on his help in dealing with competitors. The brother promised to help before returning to the inner city, but reminded him about the money. Suddenly, he noticed a very pretty girl. It was Xiaoleng. He asked if she was Feng Yuxiu's friend. She mumbled that she was not. He ordered to capture her, otherwise she might reveal their plans. The students begged Xiaoleng to help, but he said that these warriors could kill any of them and nothing would happen to them for it, and that they were not little children anymore and should understand what was what. Brother said it was no wonder this guy became a teacher. He showed who was boss. A silhouette appeared in the open door. He calmly announced that he was the boss here. The bandit turned to him and said that he was a young fool and probably wanted to die. But his brother said that he was the best student of the Starlight Academy. Xiaolan almost fainted. She exclaimed that this was her beloved brother Feng Yun. The bandit was stunned that this girl was familiar with the top one of the academy, and that meant they were finished. Feng Yun took the girl's hand tightly and said that he had collected money and bought a house in the inner city, and that she and the children from the orphanage were moving there today. He told the bandits that Feng Yuxu was also his friend and that Dawn belonged to him. The two losers sat and wondered where they could run now that they had screwed up so badly. Feng Yun brought the orphanage director and the children to a new home in the inner city and said that they were safe from now on. Everyone wanted to thank Brother Yun, but he disappeared. They found him sitting on the grass under a tree. Sister Xiaolang said that he was a great guy and tried hard. Feng Yun cultivated for several days. He trained different skills and upgraded attributes, but he was currently farming Berserker more often than anyone else, because he was the one who had the attributes that were vital for Yun. These mirror battles were really exhausting for Yun, but his efforts were rewarded and he finally knocked out the Berserker's practice Immortal Diamond Body, which will now be as strong as a boner. The Immortal Diamond Body enhanced the Tyrant's effect. Now the force of his blow exceeded 50 tons. If it weren't for his top one, he would have gone back to the hall and updated the records on the tower. Feng Yun heard the sound of the door opening and was very surprised that he had made a mistake and did not close the door. No one should see him farming and meditating. Xiaolang's charming head appeared at the door and he invited her in. She came with a request. She grabbed his hands and earnestly asked him to teach her cultivation. This was unexpected. Of course, he had met many female masters, but he did not think that this was her path. Xiaolan said that those two in the restaurant were right about something. Without strength, there is no way to protect yourself in this world, let alone the children in the orphanage. If it weren't for him yesterday, they would have been in trouble. She continued that she hated the feeling of helplessness and wanted to become stronger to protect herself and her home. He promised to help her. After all, Xiaolan had to go to a regular school instead of a martial arts school, since she spent most of her time earning money for the orphanage. He asked Jing if there was any medicine suitable for Xiaolang to improve her cultivation ability, and the effect would not be too painful, not like his. She reminded him of the trophy golden pattern pill. Indeed, it was a third-grade pill that could strengthen the foundation. He asked her to take it out of the storage. A flask appeared in his hands before the astonished eyes of Xiaolan. She didn't know that warriors could materialize things from space. He told her to drink this pill today, and tomorrow after sleep she could start cultivating. He told her to open her mouth and put the pill in there. He also gave her a folder with instructions on how to transform external energy into internal energy. He also promised to work with her after returning from the Purple Sun base. To her question, he replied that he was leaving tomorrow morning. The next day they got into the all-terrain vehicle and set off. Zhou Sheng met Feng Yun for the first time after their final battle, and couldn't stop staring at him the entire way. It seemed like he couldn't accept his defeat. Zhou Sheng still thought that Yun had cheated him, or used some trick or brought some pill and stole his technique. He was eager for revenge once he found out. Suddenly, Mr. Li ordered the driver to quickly turn off the road. The car made a sharp turn. They stopped between the trees. Mr. Li asked if everything was okay. Even if not, the main thing is not to make any sounds. Mr. Li pressed a button and opened the hatch on the roof of the all-terrain vehicle. He said that the most terrifying beast in the world was nearby. Everyone looked up with horror and interest. A unicorn wolf soared in the sky. His rank was Spiritual Ruler. Prince Feng dared to say that since a Spirit Lord-ranked beast had appeared here, they should quickly return to the base and report everything. But Mr. Li refused. Feng Yun was in a rage. He was interested in only one thing. Did the mirror manage to copy the Spiritual Lord? After all his blood, skin, bones, feathers, incredibly expensive. Mr. Li Feng said that most likely the base found out about him before they did. Feng Yun was eager to start farming the unicorn right away. Jing said she didn't recommend it. Mr. Li assumed that the unicorn was going to attack the base, and therefore they were too small a prey for him to pay attention to. Mirror brought out a projection of the unicorn and said that she warned him in advance, but let him do as he wants. Mr. Li continued that only a great master could try to fight him. And even then, only try, nothing more. Feng Yun asked Mirror. What was so special about this monster, and why was it different from all the other copied monsters? It didn't attack right away. She said she didn't want to upset him in advance. This will knock all the arrogance out of Feng Yun, because in the world of the Great Unicorn, he is just a molecule, a complete non-entity. Mr. Li said that they were just ordinary warriors, so to the great monster they were like dust. After that, the whole way to the Purple Sun base, there was complete silence in the car. No one knew what was happening to the Starlight base and other bases too. Half of the Purple Light base was once destroyed by a beast of the Lord rank. But I didn't want to think about the terrible things and the car drove to the checkpoint. They stayed at the Purple Sun Hotel. Mr. Lee told the students to go and rest, and he himself was going to study the current situation in more detail. The students talked about how Purple Sun Base has a signature dish called Emperor Crab, even though the base has no direct access to the sea. They wanted to try it. They were indeed served imperial crab for dinner. Feng Yun noticed that Prince Feng and Zhou Sheng were keeping aloof from them and were conversing in a somewhat detached manner. Feng Yun had never been so happy about food in his life. He sniffed and tasted the crab with delight. Zhou Sheng thought contemptuously that the boy had no brains, no imagination, no upbringing. There was a group sitting at the next table, and those people also started to laugh. They said loudly that the students of the Starlight Academy had already arrived in their city. They had been gathering their courage for 3 years and then decided to come. One of those sitting at the table said that this year they had a lot of talent and they would kick the guests' asses again. They burst into laughter. Then someone said that Starlight Academy had a student with a talent for both sword will and blade will. The rest said that they don't believe in these tales because the two wills suppress each other. And anyway, there is no one better than their leading disciple Lin in the world. All the rest are just scum. Jushin began to boil over from what he heard, but Prince Feng calmed him down. Wan Yun calmly devoured the delicious food and wondered what exactly had upset Sheng so much. After all, he wasn't the leading disciple now. Prince Feng recalled how 3 years ago, the top disciple of their academy had fought with Lin Wangshu of the Purple Sun, and had been completely defeated and suppressed, and had been knocked out of action forever. Berserker said that the disciple was Zhou Sheng's elder brother, and now the younger Sheng dreams of revenge. But his primacy was taken by Feng Yun. Feng Yun thought that it was not right for the Berserker to hurt Sheng's ego. Zhou Sheng told Yun that if he lost to the top player of the Purple Sun, he would kill him. He promised not to lose. Those from the neighboring table were already approaching them. They asked if the brave souls from Starlight had really come to visit them. Berserker replied that actually yes, and that they needed it. But he felt that he couldn't get up. Feng Yun looked at one of the people who came up. He scanned him and found out that he was Tai Xuan, a top-ranked master of the Purple Sun Academy. He mockingly suggested that the giant must be Zhan Xin, a colossus on clay legs. Berserker could not forgive such an insult. He jumped up and rushed at the offender. He said ironically that it was not bad. They started fighting. But the duel was short, and the Berserker flew away like a feather and blood came out of his mouth. The opponent said disappointedly that he expected more from the third in the ranking. Another of them said that now it was his turn to punch the newcomers in the face. He used the third-level Tiger Roar technique. Everyone screamed in horror, waiting for what was about to happen. Suddenly, his hand, raised to strike, hit an energy block, and he was thrown by the recoil force onto the neighboring table. The attackers looked at each other in confusion. They still didn't understand who knocked out Ti Xuan. They shouted that one of the visitors dared to use a weapon. Feng Yun calmly stood up from the table, holding a crab claw in his hands, and calmly proclaimed that he did not use a weapon. He said that the crab was very tasty, that it was his first time trying it, and that it irritated him when he was distracted from eating. Yun waved his hand and told the rude people to get lost. They picked up Tai Xuan and quickly retreated. Feng Yun returned to the table and suggested that the boys pounce, because he alone couldn't handle such a crab. Zhou Sheng thought that he was a fucking monster. The four downtrodden came to the dormitory of the leading student of their academy and told about what happened in vivid colors. Their leading disciple was named Li Wangshu, and he was 18 years old. He chuckled that this vaunted Feng Yun did not disappoint him, because he defeated Tai Xuan, the best warrior of body tempering, with one crab leg. But that won't help him. The delegation was joined by their leader. He had just arrived and reassured everyone that the winged wolf had only flown past the base in an unknown direction. Mirror was finally able to copy him. His name was Yan Chunkyu, and he had reached the limit of mastery. Of course, he had many techniques, talents, and attributes. Besides, he was also a master of tools. Feng Yun said that once he got hold of the materials, he would try to create something, and he would earn money at the same time. Yan Chunkyu told them to get a good rest so as not to tarnish the honor of Starlight Academy in the battles tomorrow. He threatened Feng Yun that if he lost to their top disciple, he would personally deduct his annual salary in points and send him to live in a regular dormitory. Feng Yun decided that this bastard had disliked him from the very beginning and now wanted to deprive him of all the privileges of a leading disciple. He began to farm Mr. Chunkyu with unprecedented ferocity and study his practices in action. Although Zerkultsi has slightly reduced cultivation, it hasn't become any easier. During one of the mirror fights, he learned the cunning tactics of Chunkyu. He summoned water, brought it to a boil, steam, and burned, and simultaneously created a steam curtain. Feng Yun had never encountered such a technique before. The steam curtain tactic was incredibly effective, but our hero had the talent of darkness. With its help, he defeated a powerful enemy in a virtual battle. He was expecting some interesting drops from this copy. Jing said that for his first win, he would receive a level 3 attribute technique, Golden Strike Splitting. This was less than he had expected. The next day was the Purple Sun Academy's 50th anniversary celebration. The Academy's building was bigger than Starlight Academy's. Before the Spirit Lord rank beast's attack, Purple Sun Base was a second rank base, so all the buildings here were bigger. For the past 3 years, their leading disciple has been Lin Wangshu, who also became one at the age of 15. He is also rumored to have a talent for the sword and has mastered the will of the sword. Sheng looked at Feng Yun and said that although they were both masters at the peak of their skills, they were actually just top-ranked masters. But he was capable of defeating anyone. A red-haired beauty came out and said that she was glad to welcome everyone to the walls of her academy. Her name was Xu Hong. Berserker was delighted by her beauty, and Sheng said that she was a stronger warrior than Yan Chunkyu and that she was stronger than any man. Ying told Feng Yun not to even bother her, since she was a head taller than him. He calmly asked that she probably meant his height. Xu Hong proclaimed that there was no better way to start the Academy's anniversary celebration than with a no-holds-barred competition, and she invited the leading disciples to fight. Prince Feng cried out, "This is not fair!" Feng Yun thought that it was even better this way. The sooner they start, the sooner they finish. He was calm and unperturbed. Mr. Chunkyu called him over. He encouraged him with the words that he must win. And to motivate him more, he promised to give him a spatial ring as a reward for victory. He told him not to be surprised. The leading disciple is a demonstration of the Academy's strength and the entire generation of the base. It affects many things, including the distribution of resources and the rank of the base. The battle was observed by representatives from both competing bases, as well as an envoy from the Zhanghai base. His opponent appeared in the arena. Feng Yun remembered the base, the shelter he had moved to the inner city, and thought that he had no right to lose. They scanned the opponent and saw that he could only use half of the sword will. But the sword will is not like a technique and cannot be perfected. However, Lin Wangshu was much stronger than Zhou Sheng. The opponent looked Feng Yun straight in the eye and greeted him mockingly. It was a battle of eyes like in boxing. He said, "Isn't it true that their director is a beauty?" He offered Yun to transfer to their academy, although he would not be a leading student here. But at least he would be in decent company and not among weaklings. Zhou Sheng was furious that he couldn't be in Feng Yun's place. Prince Feng could barely contain him. Feng Yun played the fool and replied that the offer was tempting, but the beauty was much taller than him. She couldn't reach him for a kiss. Wangshu couldn't connect emotionally with this little guy, and something about him made him very wary. He said that if that was the case, it was time to begin. And they crossed swords in a fateful duel. The spectators noted the power of the will of the sword and the will of the blade. The red-haired beauty watched the fight and noted that the boy was curious and clearly possessed the will of the sword and the will of the blade at the same time. Feng Yun immediately felt that Lin Wangshen's sword will was different from his and Zhou Sheng's. This was difficult because the technique depended on the personality of the owner. His style of mastery was more skillful. However, he also used the boost at the moment of impact. But to his credit, Lin Wangshen's sword will was superior to his own. Plus, he hadn't had time to farm it before the fight. It feels like you're being attacked by countless sword-wielding hands, leaving your opponent no chance to dodge. He wielded the sword as if it were an extension of his own arm. Surely the opponent had not only amazing talent, but also brilliant technique. Feng Yun thought that although the guy was cool, even with such abilities, he was no match for him. Feng Yun's body was much stronger and he only needed to take the blow and counterattack. This was the moment Feng Yun had been waiting for. The opponent prepared to attack. Feng Yun was also prepared, and suddenly Lin Wangshen raised his hand. Feng Yun was in high spirits and didn't immediately understand what had happened. The opponent asked him to lower his swords and not to strike. He said that he acknowledged his defeat and did not want any unnecessary sacrifices. Yun believed that they had not even started fighting yet. Wang Shun replied that he had a strong body, and that if they continued fighting until the end, they would both suffer, and that he himself understood this. He continued that Yun was not an opponent he would want to give his life to defeat. On the way to their base, Feng Yun saw the one he was talking about. Yun understood, as well as the fact that in a battle against the spiritual lord, none of them had a chance even together. The happy members of his team were already running towards Yun. The headmistress of the rival academy was furious. She threatened to lock Lin Wanshun up and not let him out until he broke through. Feng Yun thought she was a terrible woman, but in reality, she was hiding her true attitude towards what had happened. She looked at Lin Wanan as he left and said that he had finally become wise. She remembered the time 10 years ago after a major battle. She, then still a little girl, stood among people. They told her that her parents sacrificed themselves for the base and led the winged wolf away from the city. She remembers in detail that these cannot be her parents, that it wasn't their bodies that were covered with sheets. She screamed that they were alive and that it was a terrible mistake. She was not shown the bodies of her father and mother, as they were mutilated beyond recognition. She didn't believe a single word those people said. She broke free from their hands and ran away. She told Lin Wangshu that she knew that simply winning in the arena was not the purpose of his grueling training. People like him were needed for a more noble mission. They must buy time before the next disaster and raise a strong generation capable of withstanding such a force. It took enough time for that great master to emerge from the students. The leaders of Starlight Academy were happy to have wiped the floor with their rivals, who they had been losing to year after year due to the difference in skill. They gave Feng Yun the promised spatial ring. After all, this was the main prize set by the Purple Light Base. They were confident of their victory and that the ring would remain in their academy. Now let them bite their elbows. Feng Yun was not very pleased with the almost failed fight, but he was happy with the trophy. Trophies knocked out of opponents could be stored in the mirror, not forever. But a real prize is more reliable. At the same time, it was impossible to fit many demonic beasts into 100 cubic meters of spatial ring. And the other disciples thought it was mean to hand over a prize supposedly from themselves. Mr. Chunkyu said that the hero deserved an additional reward. When they returned to base, he promised to give him a sword of a higher rank than the ones he had. At the same time, events were taking place in the inner city of the Starlight Base. At the former secret base of the Bloodthorn Alliance, people came to their boss. They said that their secret base was actually destroyed, and it was the work of the city's law enforcement agencies. The boss asked what the agent and the authorities said. The agent said that the squad that attacked the secret base was indeed from the authorities. But the agent said that one of the law enforcement officers had let it slip while drunk. That among them there was one young boy, a student of the Starlight Academy, who eventually killed them all. And then this Feng Yun won the academy rating and bought a house in the city. The boss listened attentively. He said that Bloodthorn always paid his bills and that they would drop in for a visit that evening. Jing officially congratulated him on his first victory over Ling Wangshu at the peak of his skill. He will be rewarded with half of the sword will. Yun was indignant that Jing was cheating because he had many special techniques. She retorted that since he did not use the techniques personally in battle, she could not copy them. Feng Yun was disappointed that the opponent gave up so quickly, as if he hadn't shown anything on purpose. Jing said that getting half of the sword's will is not bad either. He decided that he would not combine the will of the sword here, as it was dangerous, and decided to return to the academy. He decided to move on to cultivation and remembered Xiaolong. He was curious about what was happening at home without him and wanted to go back there as soon as possible. The bandits, armed to the teeth, were already approaching his house. The leader ordered them to disperse and not let anyone go alive. They decided to commit a bloody massacre in revenge for the defeat of the Bloodfang gang. They knocked loudly and insistently on the door. The director of the shelter opened it and saw no one. After all, they were sure that the inner city was completely safe. She thought that the little ones were probably playing around, and she went back into the house. The red-haired woman said that she had heard rumors that a squad of assassins from the Bloodthorn gang had infiltrated the inner city, and she immediately knew where they were headed. She put her sword to the neck of the bandit leader. He asked her what she wanted from them, but she said it didn't matter. What mattered was that Feng Yun himself wasn't home, and she wouldn't allow a massacre. She said that he might not believe her, but she would now call the police, and then they would definitely not wait for Feng Yun to return. He raised his hand and told the bandits that the raid was canceled since the owner was not at home, and they disappeared into the darkness. She watched them go and thought that this time she had managed to hold them back, but next time he would have to cope on his own. The next day, they returned to the academy triumphantly. Mr. Li congratulated them once again on their success and suggested that they all take a good rest and then cultivate. Feng Yun happily opened the doors of his new home. He was met by Xiao Lang. He was simply amazed by her success. She had advanced in his absence to the level of a middle-class pre-master. He thought his sister had incredible talent. Jing countered that he didn't even have the materials he gave her to start with. He said that maybe she had a system better than Mirror. She angrily replied that then he wouldn't have bought the house. Worried, Xiaolan saw his internal dialogue and asked if everything was okay. He thought that Xiaolan had become taller than him. Mirror finally got angry and said that she would definitely hit him now. Xiaolan pulled him into the kitchen and said that she had prepared his favorite meat. It was of better quality here than in the outer city. Suddenly, Feng Yun was called out by someone. He turned around and saw a hooded woman standing in the doorway. He did not recognize her at once. It was the woman from the storm squad he had spared. She put her finger to her lips. He went out into the yard and called her to come out since she had come. She said she came to warn him, and she told him that a gang of 5 killers had descended upon him yesterday evening to take revenge on him for the Red Thorn. He sincerely thanked her for driving them away and warning him. She said she had done nothing wrong. She had only threatened him by calling the police. She said that they should not be underestimated because among them there is a man at the limit of his skill, and they are very, very dangerous. Feng Yun was inspired and thanked for the good news. He desperately needed a person at the peak of his skills right now. Thanks to his leading disciple scholarship, he could now meditate without restrictions on the 9th floor of the tower without fear of going bankrupt. He had finally reached his peak. Now he wanted to go to the senior teacher to get the sword he had been promised. He heard the other disciples discussing that the energy in the holy tower had been depleted. Feng Yun was embarrassed that he had almost destroyed the holy place in the academy again. He decided to run away and lie low. After all, he was still a teenager in his behavior. He knocked on the door of the senior teacher and declared that he had promised him his prize sword for victory. The teacher didn't really want to part with the sword, but there was nothing to do, and he handed it to him. He ordered to take care of his precious thing and named the sword Scar. Feng Yun thanked him with all his heart and drew his sword from its sheath. Jing said that it was made of rare spiritual ore with a metal attribute, and that it had only one drawback. It was forged by a mid-rank master, and the sword is now a mid-rank. Yun thought that using the metal attribute spiritual ore with his skills was a waste of time. The teacher said that if you don't like it, you can return it. Feng Yun said that the little things are over for today, and it's time to move on to the main course. He was going to destroy the remnants of the Bloodthorn gang. Meanwhile, the hooded girl visited Mr. Siam and asked him to look after Feng Yun's house while he was away that night. She sincerely hoped that Yun would be able to finish off the rest of the gang. She heard footsteps nearby and saw a man in a mask. She didn't even flinch and said that this was an inner city after all, and there was no point in starting a showdown here. The man called her by the name of Storm and said that of course they were not here. For now, they just came to warn that the organization never lets traitors go. She replied that she did not consider herself a traitor, and that it was the Storm that had joined them to you. She said that the Storm was no more, and that she was not going to be in their organization anymore. The masked men said that this was betrayal. Feng Yun walked through the snow forest and thought that it was strange that the woman from the Storm Squad had not shown up. He was worried that something bad had happened to her. He noticed 4 assassins following him in the darkness of the forest, but the location of their leader was still unknown, so he decided to pretend he didn't see them. If any demonic beast suddenly appears, he will take advantage of the opportunity and finish them off. Suddenly he saw snowflakes falling and was very surprised. Was that why this forest was called snowy? But it was not snow, but the seeds of snow trees, but they were worthless.